Hello, everybody! If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, is my one and only singular co-host, the man from the woods himself, the original Tree Father, the Tree Lord.
Wow.
Absolutely. Well, you're not. You're just a Tree Lord. I mean, let's not get
Yeah.
crazy, right? There's not
Not the
like
if anyone I think
Lori would be
Rob
like the Tree
Symes.
Lord Ancient. Okay.
Yeah, I mean technically Rob Symes did the very first video. Do you remember that video that he did? That
Oh,
was
I
his
do.
introduction to the lot of us, his Games Workshop marketing video, going through the Sylvaneth Battletome. So he probably has a distinction, but yeah,
But Rob is like a branch wraith. He's gotten moved to Legends.
that's fair.
Joining us also this week, David. Welcome, buddy. First time on the show. We're very happy to have you. A fellow Sylvaneth enthusiast. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's been a good day. We're talking about Sylvaneth. Yeah, I'm really excited.
As am I. This is going to be obviously the Sylvaneth Battletome review show. We're going to get into it. We're going to break this tome down. I'm actually very excited for this. So I've gotten one game in playing Sylvaneth and two games against Sylvaneth. I am 100% record across that so far. That is to say, I've beat them every time I've played them and won when I've piloted them. So I'm just gonna. I think it's time to retire again, Tyler. This is out. I go out on the 1,000% record against Sylvaneth or with Sylvaneth, involving Sylvaneth,
Dude.
and then I just never play them again. But at any rate, first up, of course, we've got some news. Tyler, what do you got?
Yeah, let's make it a quick one. So Rumor Engine looks 40k-ish or Necromunda-ish. Is there anything you guys can think of in AOS that this would work for? I
New
couldn't think of
flagellants.
anything. Flagellants? Yeah.
It's a little spiky for them, but there you go. New flagellants.
Any guesses?
I
David,
looked a
or-
little bit chaos sigilly, so I was thinking maybe it's gonna be coming up on that skirmish preview. Maybe if they're doing something with Warcry.
Could just be something hanging off a new Slaves to Darkness model as well, because we know we're getting a bunch of
Right.
resculpts of like all of that stuff. You know, we're going to get new Chosen and the new Minotaur people and all sorts of good stuff. So, I mean, the end of the year promises to be awesome if you love Slaves of Darkness, and I do. Slaves to Darkness, so I'm excited for what that bodes. Could be that.
Oh, very good. We have a skirmish preview coming up. Vince, I don't know much about this. I've been a little offline. Warhammer Preview Online, Sunday, July 10th, 2 p.m. Standard Time. I'm guessing that's what that is.
Yep.
What's this going to be about?
All the skirmish games. So the important part to us is like they're gonna do. I assume they're gonna. It's called like their summer skirmish preview spectacular, right? And I assume we'll see like new stuff for Kill Team and new, like it's gonna be a lot of like, especially I imagine we'll see some of the dual boxes that are coming for like Kill Team and maybe some new Underworld stuff because I think they probably count that in their skirmish thing, but obviously also Warcry. So I'm hoping that what they announce is like, hey, here's the new version of Warcry, as has been. We've suspected we're getting a new version of Warcry this summer. That would make that will be the 3-year cycle. Okay, so like if Warcry gets a new edition, then that's the 3-year cycle that all the other games are on. So we expect it this summer. So I expect they'll announce the new Warcry edition / the cool. And yes, very good. They do. So Hooves confirmed that yes, Underworlds will be part of that too. So I assume that that'll be the announcement, and then we'll see the Nurgle guys versus the Horns of Hashut dual block or launch box or whatever. So
Gotcha. All right.
So-
very good.
cool stuff. I mean, like the reason we all love Underworlds is because once in a while we get a small Underworld set that has like awesome rules for AOS, but most of the time we just get cool models for our units, which is also fine.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, we had a fact drop. And again, I haven't looked into
boy.
the details of this too much. I've been a little off this week with
Have
news
you
and
now?
such. Yeah. Now, what I
Lucky
skimmed,
you.
it mostly looked like it was just incorporating a lot of what we'd already knew. But I'm sure there's a controversy in there somewhere.
Controversy.
What did they? What
can attest
got
that there
messed
is
up?
controversy.
Something had to
David?
get messed up.
Would you like to talk about that? Like, I have the controversy image loaded up. Would you like to give your read on what this is and explain what's the controversy is with folks?
If I were looking at the controversy image, I'd take that chance. You know what? I'll just guess and assume.
Yeah, guess. Give it a guess.
Fixing things which don't need fixing and weren't broken. You don't need them bracketing all the bonuses and then saying max whatever you set it to.
You are correct. Let's talk about it. That is, see, you nailed it, David. You nailed it. You knew. Because there was only one remotely controversial thing happening here. But here we are. Question. If a unit is affected by an ability that adds to or subtracts from a characteristic, okay, so adds to or subtracts, like in other words, has a bonus, a modifier, and then by an ability that changes a characteristic to a specific value, i.e. a set value, okay? Not a bonus or modifier. No, Jose, not Fulminators and Bounty Hunters. That would not matter. So, for example, an Achillean King, who in the hero phase casts Flaming Weapon, or maybe he's got an Arcane Tome or something, I don't know. He casts Flaming Weapon, sure. Right? And then uses the Wave Rider ability in the following charge phase, which sets the damage value. Okay. To like 3, I think. In the following charge phase, do both effects apply? Answer, no they don't. If the effect of a rule changes a characteristic to a specific value, it overrides any earlier modifiers. Okay? So in other words, the Killing King, whose base damage is like 1, goes to damage 2 because of +1 damage. That's what Flaming Weapon does. Then he charges, and the charge says it sets your damage to 3. So the setting overrides all previous bonuses. Okay? Now, this little spicy fix here, first of all, doesn't need to exist, exactly as David said. And it does cause some issues. Now, some of lawyer Warhammer Twitter, because that is a thing. There's a good section.
Lawyer Nico, I'm sure, leading the charge.
Oh, you know it. Our good brother, friend of the show, one of my favorite people in the world, Nico, had a lot to say about this and is like all over it. I don't agree with most of his cases. Things like Bounty Hunters doesn't really pose a problem. The issue is it sets you up for like effect stacking tracking that like doesn't need to be there. Things like Bounty Hunters don't really matter. Because, like, when you charge and it sets your damage to something, as a lot of Cav does, right? A lot of Cav has, like, a lance that'll say, like, on the charge, set your damage to this, as opposed to gain +2 damage. If you're then in Bounty Hunters on top of that, well, then Bounty Hunters triggers when you fight the unit that is a galley vet. That's clearly the logical construct for the trigger there. Okay? Like, because it's not always on, so it has to trigger, right? It is not, like, taking Bounty Hunters is not +1 to damage. That's not what happens, right? It's when you fight a galley vet, you're +1 to damage. Like, that's trigger effect. Okay. That's the logical construct. So, at any rate, there's all sorts of other things, and like, you know, Nico's looking out at other elements of what happens when these kinds of things are set, and I'm like, well, you know, like, for example, your capture mechanic, and I'm like, that's not a characteristic. Right? That would be my simple argument. Now, it is still dumb and annoying and doesn't need to exist. And I will give you the funniest situation that can happen here. Are you ready? This is actually a doc nerf. I bet you didn't know that. But here it is.
I knew that.
That's on brand for Warhammer Weekly, so I'm excited for this.
So here is why this nerfs. Yes, this is why this nerfs Daughters of Cain. Okay? Which makes me happy because that means it will get fixed. Because we can't abide that.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So, at any rate, in Doc there is a thing called the Gladiatrix, the High Gladiatrix, right? And her benefit is that if you're wholly within 12 of her, she sets your 2 wound characteristic to 3 up for witch elves and sisters, and she sets their rends to -1, like instead of its normal number. Okay, so those are 2 set mechanics. Like, it is setting to a value, not adding or subtracting. With me so far? Cool. All right, so we have some witches who are in Drakey Ganeth and who have been mind razored. So on the charge, they would theoretically have neg 3 rend, right? One from, because they're at neg 1 from the Gladiatrix, one from Mind Razor, one from being in Drakey. So then they charge. But when they charge, they pass out. Even one model passes outside of wholly within her bubble. Okay? So the way we would have played that before is, so they pass out her bubble. Then she charges, and she charges in as well. So they go here, she goes here. They're now back wholly within her bubble. You with me so far? Unit charges, she charges. They were out of her bubble momentarily. No matter who charged first, they would have been out of the bubble momentarily. Yeah? Okay. So, the way we would have all logically played that before is they're Rend 3. They were Rend 3, they charged, Mind Razor, blah, 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 blah. They're Rend 3. The way this rule says to play that is, okay, so it was set at neg 1, then it got these 2 bonuses when they charged. Drakey and Mind Razor, yeah? Or whatever. They charged out. They lost the base bubble. They passed out of the bubble range. When she charges back in and puts them back in her bubble, she sets their rend back to neg 1. Because previous bonuses don't apply. So she sets, because she's setting a stat, she would override previous bonuses, namely those things that had already previously applied. She will ignore all of that and set it back to neg 1. That's obviously a horribly counterintuitive effect. Bright side, you don't need to adjust her points if that's how she works. We can go ahead and keep her at 90 and that's fine. But the right thing is obviously to just undo this. This is silly. Like, just let it work intuitively. And then we can just be fine.
Sorry, I was going to say, it's supposed to be frequently asked questions. So my question is, who in the world asked that more than once?
Right, yeah. Who didn't, like... If your Achillean King had +1 to damage and he charged and set his damage to 3, everybody in the universe would have just been like, okay, he's damage 4 now. That's how we've all played all the time. Okay? And like, when stuff like this happens where they create an FAQ that's so obviously counterintuitive in its consequences, I just, hey, what's up, Broadsword? How you doing? I'm forced to be like, think like you're a judge. You're a Supreme Court type judge, right? And like, think of your stare decisis and like common interpretation of how laws have been applied matters in your decision, right? You can't just upend things normally. And
Sure, Vince.
And like,
Okay,
if it's going to provide like an undue burden in your ruling, you tend to use like the weight of how people commonly view things as part of your decision making, right? That's how like high courts tend to work. Right? And so like, this should be the same thing. Like, nobody thought like this. Stop it. Just switch it back. Just be like, never mind, sorry, delete, done. Like, easy. You know what I mean? Just delete the thing, and we can go back to all playing the way we know, and everybody's fine, and it's no issue. Or if you want to, just erase the answer and be like, yes, they go together.
Right.
Next. Cool. Like,
yeah, that's weird.
Because like, this isn't Magic. Magic has this concept, you know? And in the end, by the way, I don't think this is like the biggest deal. It's not like it's messing things up. Like, Magic has this. Because in Magic, you can have a bunch of bonuses and modifiers on your card, and then it can be set to a stat. So, like, then it becomes a 3/3 frog. Okay, well, all those bonuses go away. It's just a 3/3 frog now. That's how Magic works. But Magic has a stack and an easy-to-track order of operations and all of that, right? That's not how Warhammer works. Let's not try to do that. Let's just go ahead and be like, let's just keep this easy. Math is math. Easy. Cool.
David, we're filling up the bingo card early. 15 minutes in, we've got a Doc Nerf on the table, and we've got a Magic the Gathering reference. We're off to a great start.
Get them done, boys. Get them done. Absolutely. That's what we got to get in. Most relevant things we talk about on this show. Doc Nerfs and Magic the Gathering. All right. So that's all the news. Anything else? David, any final thoughts from you on this one?
I just get really annoyed when they answer questions which didn't need answering and then
Sure.
don't answer questions which I really hoped they would answer.
Sure.
I got some friends of mine starting up Night Haunt. They got a bunch of questions where I'm like, hey, I think it works this way. They're like, but I want the rules to say that. And I'm like, ah.
Yeah.
Questions like with the Banshees, what does it mean to choose a unit to be affected by a spell with reference to
Yeah.
AoEs? How does their ability trigger?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Tom was
It's
telling us
messy.
about that one early on. Yeah.
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 And I mean, I get it. Like, it's new book, but like, there were hard questions which need to be answered. And you wasted time with
Mm.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
I look forward to the Night Hunt FAQ. I agree. Like, I don't know how we don't have that yet, but yet here we are. Like, we're with the next books are out. We don't have the full FAQ that we should have for the previous book, which is weird. So anyway, but yeah, there's that. So cool. Fix this and thank you. Great. Again, it's not like the end of the world. It's not the end of the game. It's not even something most players would ever encounter or care about. It's just a silly thing that does need to be there. That'll catch somebody in a stupid way sometime. So that's all. Easy peasy. All right, gentlemen. Well, let's go to some pick of the week. So, pick of the week. David, you're the guest. Start us off. What would you like to share with everybody?
Jordan Duncan from Season of War has that amazing Lady of Vines conversion. I kept on trying to look at different podcasts and stuff, and I'm like, no, there's nothing which is better than this. This is the best thing I've seen all year.
Yeah, it's
It made
insane.
me happy.
It is super gorgeous. You can find it linked below. It is really, really beautiful. My only problem is the lady doesn't fly, but doesn't necessarily matter. You can have wings on it. I wonder why he didn't do it for the Warsong Revenant, because that guy does fly, or that model does fly. I could see a similar sort of conversion there as well. But it's gorgeous. I mean, it's absolutely stunningly gorgeous. And look, it's time to start lifting Puscoil Blightwings. Blightlord wings. That's what that tells us right there. Those things are just made for new Sylvaneth. It's bug time. So there you go. All right, Tyler, you've got like 50 picks of the week. Go for it.
Gotta make up for it. David, you gotta come in a little hotter. On
Don't
picks of the week.
do not listen to him. You did the exact correct thing, David, and thank you. Tyler, go ahead.
All right, so we've got two excellent Sylvaneth Battletome reviews. Wanted to give a shout out to how did this Strategoi, I believe. It's I think it's a Greek word that I haven't said in a very long time. They have a really cool channel. They did a great review, went through a lot of lists. Yeah, it's a relatively new channel, so go over there, check them out, give them a visual like and subscribe. And then Grand Alliance Death, Alex and his buddy, they did a really nice in-depth chat over 3 hours, had some good commentary on... David, have you seen that channel, by the way? Grand Alliance Death? You'd really like it. They
yeah.
had some... they had some great insight, I thought, on Sylvaneth, getting into some of the nuances of the Warscrolls and so on. So those two got to hit the Season of War on the bingo card, of course.
Sure.
Jordan played his first game with the new Battletome against Zach, a lovely human being who is running an old school Fire Slayers list, just 4-inch move all around, doing their best to compete against this new Sylvaneth Battletome and what it loves to do. But it was a good game. You can definitely see what the Battletome's capable of, the new trees. And then I wanted to shout out my friend Zano, who has created, this is the old, I don't know if you ever saw this, Vince. This was the GHB 2021 Battle
sure.
Tactics dashboard.
Yep. Yeah.
It's my favorite product ever. It's
Sure.
amazing. So he's created a 2022 version of this, a little fancier. It's got a few additional details. We've got a link to it. How much is he? He's selling these things for too cheap, whatever. It's like $18 or something he's selling them for. So yeah, it's just an amazing way to keep track of your battle tactics, your command points, victory points. I can't recommend enough. And he's a great guy who helped us out a lot with Vault Wars a few months back. So yeah, Vince, Tom and you, I'll go and give it away while I'm talking about it. You guys will have one in the mail for you soon, buddy.
Uh-oh. Very nice. Well, that's awesome. Very cool stuff. I love it. And links for all of Tyler's many, many picks down in the comments.
Oh shoot, one more. Shout out to Cubic Shenanigans, just for you, Vince.
Uh-oh.
Just
Okay.
to get one more. Shout out those guys, 100th episode. And our good buddies Dan and Brendan. They just finished up their 100th episode. It's out there now. Congrats, boys.
Fantastic. I can't second this. Not because Brendan and Dan aren't lovely human beings. They are some of my favorite people. But unfortunately, Brendan is a well-known Skaven hater, so he's off the list right there. You're off the list.
Smart man, that Brendan.
Once I win his hour in Rantathon or whatever, once I donate the most money to make him have to play an army or whatever that I want for a tournament, I'm going to force him to play a Skaven army. So that's
God,
that's
yeah,
what's
that's a
happening.
thing now. Totally forgot about that. Yeah.
Mr. Mephisto's upcoming Rantathon on the 30th should be a good time. We'll talk about it more in some coming weeks as we get closer. All right, my pick of the week is very simple. It's a video that's not out yet, but it will be out tomorrow. And it's talking early Skaven thoughts with Coach and Joel. And Joel is an awesome Skaven enthusiast, much like myself. I don't even have to have watched it to recommend it, because you got Joel, you got Coach. What could go wrong? It's gonna
Joel,
be perfect.
are we McGrath or are we Graham?
Well,
We're Americans. We're not supposed to know the difference between those two.
yes, I understand. And it's funny that you said it, because I had to redoubt myself as I was about to answer it. Like, I had it in my head, and then you maybe go, wait a minute, hold on. Do I not remember which one it actually is? Joel Graham. Okay, there we go. I hate that I like both of them so much, and that you made me doubt myself for a second, because I was going to say it, but then I was like, wait, hold on. Did I get it backwards in my head?
Yeah, you're welcome.
Appreciate it. All right, as we move from that into some hobby time, hey, welcome to Hobby Time. If you haven't hit like yet, why don't you do that? It's super easy. Just click that little button, hit that like button. There's a lot more of you watching than have hit like yet, and the fun is yet to come. We're going to have a good time. Hit like for trees and other fun stuff. Hobby Time. Okay, David, what are you working on, man? What's on your table? What have you been painting? What have you been hobbying on?
Just finished Lady of Vines, which
Nice.
meant that I needed to figure out how to incorporate metal into my color scheme, because I saw them do that. Thought that was cool. It worked out really well. Went with, I don't remember the name of it. One of those Chaos Legion, the bluish silver one. Not Chaos, it was a Space Marine thing. Anyway, basically blue silver overwashed with Aethermatic blue and Basilicum gray worked really well. So now I know how I'm going to paint my bugs, which are coming up next.
Nice.
Need a lot
Awesome.
of them.
Oh yes, many bug riders. I believe right now that Tom is fulfilling a commission for the Sylvaneth player I was describing that game against to you. Since he didn't have his bugs were off on the commission table, so I was being swarmed by Puscoil Blightlords instead. That was the stand-in since they're on like the same base.
Lori's been sharing photos of Twitter of the old school wildwood trees or the Citadel wood trees. Yeah, on the proper. Yeah, I love it. Like, yeah,
It's great.
for his stand-ins.
Explains a lot.
How many
That's,
bugs do you got, David? How many bugs have you bought so far?
Well, so I had a bit of a snafu with double buying a Battletome. So for a while, I didn't have much money to buy bugs. But I've only got 3. The plan is to eventually get 12 in total. I go with 6 Lancers and 2x3 Seekers.
By 3.
On
Yeah.
every list I'm making, I'm not ever taking more than that. So,
So
should do me good.
Cool. I'm ready.
Very nice.
I'm prepared.
The Dwark. I didn't even look at Heroic Recovery because I assumed it was the same as what they fixed it to, but if they did print the old one, that's funny. I'll go look at my GHP. We've only been using the new one since they changed it, since it's the obvious way it should have always worked. But that's very funny. I'll have to go look at that. Tyler, have you been painting anything?
I really was hoping I would be able to say yes this week.
Mm-hmm.
We had a chat the other night.
Sure.
The real world's been hitting me a little hard of late, and it's got me off the hobby. So I need to snap out of it and get back to fulfilling some of these huge commitments that I made.
It's all right, because you know what's going to center you, Tyler? The first time you sit down and put some contrast paint on something. I'm going to tell you right now. You're going to be slap chopping the night away, and you're not even going to know. You're just going to be like, what have I done? I've wasted so many years. when I could have had this incredible meditative centering hobby process. But that's all right.
Hope you're right, Mike. Hope you're right.
Oh, I know I'm right. It's never too late. It's never too late.
Don't paint the Lady of Vines if you're trying to meditate, though.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
She's got a lot of pokey bits. A lot of Sylvaneth
Yeah,
things
they
have
keep
pokey
hooking
bits.
you.
That being said, they are like a great paint to start out with. Sylvaneth's one of those armies is actually really good to paint when you're new. Because they are like very friendly to things like contrast and dry brushing and all that kind of stuff. They're slap choppable for sure. Okay. My hobby time has been working on something not AOS related, but I'm working on my next giant robot. So this is his, again, he is in many pieces because that's what you have to do with these big boys. So this is the skeleton, and then here's his armor back here on my sheet.
Nice.
And so he will be another knight for my house divine army, I guess. I guess that's what it is now. But this is obviously for Golden Demon, and so this is like a very slow, laborious process with lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of very careful, slow detail that I am trying my best to record as much as I can of, but we'll see what happens. Okay. So, but it's going to take me another good solid week on this. We might come to next week very easily, and I'm still going to say the same thing, that I'm working on this guy still. Because there's many hours ahead of him on this road. Many hours. All right. So with that, gentlemen, we've made good time.
Yeah.
Shall we get into the Sylvaneth?
Let's do it. What's our mark? So, like, I haven't seen the last show. Did you guys get over? Surely you got over 3 hours.
I believe it was over 3 hours, yes.
Did you get under 4 hours?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
All right.
Let's see.
Guess.
It was 3 hours and 52 minutes and 6 seconds.
Okay, all right. That's our mark, David.
We'd like to stay under that if we could. This is a smaller book that doesn't have 39 Warscrolls, so maybe we could do less time. That would be great. Okay?
Promise to not do my best.
I appreciate it. All right. So, Sylvaneth Battletome 2022. Let's get amongst it. Here we go. Tyler, I just copy-pasted all of the bullet points you had onto 2 slides, but I did it, and I kind of broke them up a little bit here. Okay.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for giving me credit. I appreciate that.
Yeah, these are all Tyler's thoughts. He gets credit and blame. So Tyler, you said the following. Here we go. One of the best 3.0 books so far in terms of viable variety, a list builder's dream. I'm going to say I agree with that. I think this sits amongst the top of the pile in the 3.0 books, right up there with Nurgle and the other bests of the best in breed in 3.0 so far. David, what about yourself? Think that's right?
Yeah, no. That's absolutely right. I could go into details on that, but we'll get into those later.
Okay, right on. Tyler's next point, just about every War Scroll we'll see play competitively, except for the Warband, the Underworld's Warband, but like whatever. Who cares? That doesn't count anyways. I think there are a few exceptions there, which we will talk about. But I agree. It's like I think that the vast majority of the scrolls, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, have lists they're a part of that have a reasonable path to victory. That's how I would say it.
Yeah. And I was being pretty generous with that, having 10 Dryads in a list as your qualifier for every War Scroll we'll see play competitively. Yeah. Sure.
Absolutely. David, is that one checking out with you? Think most of the scrolls have some viability?
Yeah, no. Situationally, there's 1 or 2 I have some questions on with price point and stuff like that, but high level I agree with that.
Okay, very good. Let's do the next 2 in order because I think they're very, very related, which is another primary Johnny book with some Timmy, especially in Oakenbrow, and a broad toolbox, but at a price that forces tough choices and real trade-offs. Which almost to be a Johnny book, you kind of have to have a lot of different synergistic, combo-rific plan-based capabilities and options, but at the same time, I think expensive does matter. Like, you pay for that stuff, and that actually almost helps the Johnniness of it, because you do have to make trade-offs and decide what your plan is. So, is that David? What do you think? Is that checking out with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's both the strength and the weakness. On account of, I love it because it's everything I always wanted Draika's army to be back in like 2007. It lets you be clever, it lets you play spirits, but the problem is it forces you to be clever. If you're not trying to be clever, maybe there's some lists in there which can do a linear play, but I think that's extremely Johnny. Perfect for me, but perhaps to a fault if you were getting into wargaming for the first time and you picked up the models because you loved them. I could see someone having a real challenge with that.
Yep. Okay. Very good. All right. This next one I cannot agree with more. I like the way woods are treated is better for both you and your opponent. Completely agree. I love the fact that woods aren't as essential now. Thank God. We finally did it, folks. We finally got there. The thing we suggested years ago of, you can just make some of the terrain on the board overgrown. They should have gone farther with that, by the by, but nonetheless, I'm still happy to see it is where it is. It's great. This is just great. This is pure win.
In your game so far, have you felt the counterplay where your opponent can tag 3 inches to shut off the endpoint?
I'll let David answer. Have you gotten games in yet?
Yeah.
What do you? Okay.
I've gotten a couple in. 3 with the new tome and 1 with the old tome right before it came out. So I started getting in as many games as I could with the old Battletome, so I could have like a really strong comparison. My experience has been, if you're not clever with your placement, very easy to zone out. Because you get these big blobs zoning out multiple trees. But if you are clever with your placement, you can make it so that, the enemy can zone it out, but you can oftentimes force that to be a mistake, opening them up to alpha strikes and stuff like that. So it's been a good balance if you can counterplay it, but you can go too far into trying to counterplay it, and I can play into Sylvaneth's hands. I think it's in a pretty good place.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I will say that as somebody, like I said, in my 2 games against it, I was very much focused on zoning out woods, right, where I could, like stretching out to have enemies within range. Mike says, do I still have to burn $100 in terrain in order to play Sylvaneth? No, though I think you basically need 1 box. Like 1 box of trees, maybe 2 if you want to have just like some more options for summoning, but 1 would probably do you, and you could have a perfectly good time with that. Because you could set up like your 2 you could set up the small tip touchers and then use the big one as your kind of outwoods that you might place with as a single wood you're going to place with like a Tree Lord Ancient or something like that. So, because you may occasionally want to summon 1 additional wood, but hey, it's so much better. It's not like if you can't get your trees down, suddenly that's it, and you have to have a ton of trees and you have to spam trees. It's like, nah, that's not the world anymore, which is really wonderful.
Competitively, you can probably get the job done with 2 boxes, which is a lot better place than, much better than we've ever been in. So
I honestly think there would be very little call in most places to ever go above 2 boxes now of the trees. Just because
you're usually just putting out a single piece after your initial setup.
I have found with 3 having 3 of the little tiny ones.
Oh yeah,
for my big wood starting, and then I found I've never summoned more than 2. Having 2 of the tiny ones has been useful, but you wouldn't be hurt without it. Like, you just have to say, hey, I don't have that, so I'm not going to plan to have it, and you'd be fine. I was just being cheeky.
Right on. You can dictate the flow of a game, but need a plan for when you get punched in the face. Tyler, you want to talk about this one? Because you're an old school Sylvaneth player going back to when basically Sylvaneth would try to win in setup.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So David and I, we've been talking a lot of this week, and this came up in some of our conversations. The Mike Tyson, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. So we were talking about this in a number of contexts. One is at the list building stage, thinking about a list that has 2 things: a good amount of optionality as a baseline. We can get into what we mean by that. Number two, the ability to essentially reposition, redeploy, particularly away from your initial launch pad is what we've always called it over the years, right? You have your setup, Wildwood, traditionally in 2.0, you would put your Spiteswarm Hive there. You would then do your Spiteswarm Hive, you teleport. We're still playing that a little bit. You need to be able to, in some matchups, reposition your bunker, your launch pad. Iron Jaws come burning in with lots of pigs, Claw Crusher at 2. You're going to have to potentially reposition. So that was the point. The army has moved away from save stacking. Thank God. It was insane, actually, in 2.0. It was kind of sneaky broken. Or maybe not broken might be a little too hard, but David knows what I'm talking about in particular with the save stacking.
Toxic.
It was pretty toxic, yeah. So the army is appropriately more vulnerable than it used to be to rend. So yeah, you can get punched in the face and have a hard time recovering if you're not careful.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's a deception there. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead. Go
okay.
ahead.
All right, excellent. There's a deception there when you look at a lot of the Warscrolls, and you're like, oh, Kurnoths and Tree Lords and Drika and la, all 3-up saves, so beautiful. It's like, okay, but you don't have the stacking games of the Stormcast, and you don't have wounds. So, yeah, you're not going to get a bunch of goblin hits through, but you're not as durable as you would think, unless there's ways to make them durable. But on the 10, you're breakable. And so you get double cabbage into your face, into your bunker. If you didn't plan for that and have some screens to deal with that, you're going to die, and you're going to die fast. I mean, I think the battle you mentioned with Skaven kind of is amplifying that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this continues a trend that we're seeing, which I actually really like, which is them understanding the need for tempo in the game, where a lot of abilities and what they do and when they're valuable is very much keyed to your turn. So on your turn, you feel like you're on the schneid, right? You're playing, But then off turn, you don't have as many tools in your toolbox, and it becomes the other player who's then stepping forward and really feeling like they're driving, and it creates this back and forth tempo that I think it feels really good. It does make the game feel going into round 3 and 4 like there's more of a game being played still. Right? Because you're like, oh, I'm in a bad place, and it turns to your turn, and you're like, okay, no, I've got some options here. I can do some stuff, right? Because suddenly that tool set comes back online. Night Haunt very much like that. Doc have a lot of things like that. So yeah. Okay, and then your final point. Oh, sorry, two final points. Pound for pound, one of the best sets of 3.0 Battletome command traits to date. I agree, but we'll talk about that more when we get into the command traits. And feels like a book you could play for years and continue to find rewarding. Also agreed. I think we all agree with that. I'm just happy to pull my Sylvaneth army out again. That's quite nice. It was great to get a game with it. I haven't played it for years. Hello, dear.
Hey, Kathy.
Tyler says hi. Everybody says hi. Everybody say hi to Kathy. Put hi in the comments. There you go.
Who's the guy in the middle?
That is David.
There's like a nap.
There's a nap,
No.
yes. Yes.
Guy.
This is David. It's his first time on the show, so we're all
get
happy
some
to
new
have
blood.
him. Yes, exactly.
Oh my God, it's David!
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. Very good.
It's not Owen Jackson though.
It's not. Well, there's only one Owen Jackson in
Only
the
one
world,
Owen
so
Jackson.
there you go.
Sorry, I had to put something.
That's
Feel
fine.
bad, David. Yeah. we all pale in comparison.
We all. That's not just you. That's Tyler. That's me. That's everybody. She says that. She says that when she meets any random person or any of my friends. She's like, "Oh, well, you're not Owen Jackson," so that's not weird. Okay, let's talk about some insights, because some of your points, Tyler, were insights. Okay, so I thought we'd go that direction.
Similar to Endeneth, player skill will have an outsized impact on results.
Idneth.
No, her name's Will.
Okay, got it. So, I very much agree with this one, but David, I'm looking for your take on this one. I think this is an extremely player skill dependent army. I think in the hands of somebody who really knows how to utilize the tools, who is remembering all the optionality they have, as we mentioned already, and using it effectively, this is an extremely potent force and hard to beat. For somebody who's very new and is trying to who isn't really sure how to what tool do you get out at what time, it's going to be tougher. What do you think about that, Reed?
Yeah, so there's two concepts. Skill floor is what I call it, basically. And I think it's a pretty common idea. And that's where most things skill ceiling is. Then you have the skill ceiling is way beyond that. It's a brilliant book to express cleverness. It's going to be, I hate to say it, because like it was my first army in Warhammer, but I couldn't recommend someone new to wargaming pick up Sylvaneth. I'd be like, literally try anything else first, because it's just going to be so hard to win games if you don't know how to exploit that. If you've done wargaming before, like you're coming from 40K or you're coming from, I don't know, you could do it. But,
yeah, if you're not starting at 0, right?
Yeah.
No, I agree with that.
Obviously, David's maybe I was just Vince the exception of Oakenbrow if you want to run the March of the Ents and have a good old time.
Yeah, but I mean like it's like you're gonna go 3-2-2-3 at a tournament if you're a good player with that. It's a fun list, but it's not gonna.
Yeah. You're trying to be competitive. Definitely.
That being said, I think like the Oakenbrow thing will be fun on your home tables, even if you're not quite up to it yet, because it still has access to the tools and tricks of the army, of course. It's just like it does what it does more simply. Yes. Yeah. Go ahead. You were going to say something when I interrupted you. I apologize.
Oh, I interrupted you. I was being rude. I'm sorry.
No. Okay, good. Strike and Fade creates the strongest link to date between lore and the in-game. I agree. There is no ludonarrative dissonance there whatsoever. The verisimilitude on Strike and Fade is exactly what we've always read in the stories. We'll talk about it when we get to the rules. I want to actually save that for when we dig in on the allegiance abilities here in a slide or two. And then Strike and Fade also means the army had to become more expensive. I agree. That kind of trick, it is. You talk about skill ceiling, like the ceiling on Strike and Fade and its proper usage is crazy. It's crazy what it can do. Okay.
Some concerns about it from a negative play experience standpoint, just the nature of it. Yeah, in the hands of experienced, good players, it's going to feel quite brutal at times. Yeah, we can get into it later.
Yeah.
In terms of matching the lore, it's spot on. Yeah.
Yep. It's going to feel like a surgeon's knife. Just right in, just slicing right through you. You already mentioned it, but they moved away, thankfully, from the prior book's absurd amount of save stacking. Good. That being said, we also did improve some saves in some key places, so that's cool. Good things, which really does pay some extreme dividends. So that is a very cool thing. This is what I want you to dig in on here just a little bit, Tyler. This one's for you because this is very much a you point. Sufficiently rewards the OG ideal, a 5-tool combined arms list with optionality. That is so wonky, what is said right there. That is the inside-ish baseball of inside baseball. So explain what you mean there, Tyler.
Absolutely. All right. So when the 2016 Battletome came out, I would say a lot of us, when we picked up that Battletome, we wrote a list along these lines. This may not mean anything. I'll kind of go into more detail, explain the overall idea, but it was Spirit of Durthu, True Lord Ancient, Branch Witch. As I like 2x10 Dryads and 5 True Revs, or 1x10 Dryads, 2x5 True Revs, 1 of 6 size, and 2 of 3 bows, right? Okay, so that list has all the tools. Ability, magic, shooting, combat, durability. It was a beautiful play style. That was the defining play style when that book came out, along with, of course, the bunkering, right? You plop your woods down on objectives and you hang out. So it was.
Now we should state, it did not do all of those exceptionally well. It wasn't like it was banging on all 5 cylinders at like the best in breed. It was just, it did all 5 of them well enough that the sum was, greater than its parts or whatever, right? And that combined with the clever things like bunkering around your forests around objectives and things like that, so it was hard to get in and pull you out of them. That kind of thing made it very, very tricky because it could, as you said, it could shoot, it could take a hit, it could give back a hit, it could play in the magic phase, it could do all this stuff, right? Yeah.
It was just a combined arms stream. It kind of, that ideal of experiencing the full breadth of the spectrum of playing Warhammer. It had that in spades. Got away from that a little bit over the years, but we don't have to go into those details. Now, interestingly enough, at least in my mind, and I know, David, you know this, a prominent, I'd say a pretty prominent archetype developed by Matthew Davies, Math Mello, who did really well in the UK scene, particularly with the 2.0 book about better than anybody else in the world, arguably. He had a similar footprint with a lot of the lists that he put together. Maybe didn't have quite as many tools, but it was like Alarial, 6 bows, 3/5 tree revenants. So he had magic, mobility, not as much durability necessarily. He had the war song bomb in there, but anyhow, so that's just it. That strikes me as an ideal on many levels, and this book can very much do that.
Yeah, I agree. Basically, and if you want the long and short of what Tyler's describing there, think of the way Games Workshop thinks like cities armies are supposed to be played.
Right.
Right? Like in their minds, everybody's playing Empire armies that are like, oh, it's these counter strikes, and you've got these troops up front, and then archers, and they shoot over, and then they skirmish out, and then run back, and there's artillery behind the lines, and a monster, general and stuff. That's how they think it is. I mean, that's not how Cities is ever played. That's nonsense. Cities isn't like that. They didn't write that book. Okay? But in their heads, that's what it looks like. Right? Officially, 0 people play that way. But cool concept. Sylvaneth has always been the one that actually did that better. By the way, I would argue that the other force that does this in the current world of 3.0, like especially of the new books that have been released, is Skaven.
Okay.
Because they also play magic, play shooting, have good hammers. The anvil is the one part where they're weakest, but honestly, that might be the weakness here too. I'm not sure that either of these books have neither of these books have Hearthguard Berserkers or something in them. Okay.
Definitely. Yeah.
Right. And there's still tough enough stuff. Often with Skaven, it's just bodies, just raw wounds to tank it. Here, it's a combination of wounds and saves, good saves. But anyways, they're an interesting match against each other because they do both want to play that. When the turns go back and forth, you're both playing in every phase. Right. I've done Skaven versus Sylvaneth twice now since the new books came out, and it's just fighting teleporters.
Sure.
Right? They're making woods and jumping around and striking and fade, and I'm jumping in null holes and skitter leaping, and it's just everybody's teleporting, everybody's shooting, everybody's doing nonsense, right? It's everybody's playing in all the phases. So I like that matchup it's a very fun matchup. Anyways. Okay. You said places a healthy constraint, maybe too healthy on the attractiveness of shooting. I think it's just right, personally.
Yeah.
Shooting's expensive in this book, but it's good. It's high quality shots in both cases of sort of your main shooters. Not that they're the only shooters, but sort of your two main shooters you're going to see in lists that you think of as shooting units. Feel to me like they're expensive, but priced accordingly for what you should be paying for high quality shooting. High quality shooting should be expensive. I don't care what you price Ungor Raiders at. Okay, whatever. As long as they're shooting once and hitting on 4s and 4s or blah blah blah, that kind of thing, it doesn't matter. That's always going to be crap, right? And those shots are fine. They it's cool. But when you actually have multi damage, rend, extreme range, mortal wound potential, that stuff needs to be costed heavily because it's still valuable in the list, even costed expensively. I mean, look at how much 6 wounds of long strikes were and how much everybody put them in their list immediately, right?
Yeah, totally.
So people were willing to pay that outrageous wound to point ratio because they could double tap them and Okay, David, what do you think about the shooting in the book overall, at a high level? You think it's in the right place?
I love it. I mean, I wouldn't. I'm not so confident in my own opinion that I would say yes, it's right. Flag on this hill. But just speaking from personal experience, the 12-inch range on Draca, I haven't had a chance to play Gossamids, but they're basically Draca in unit form.
Yeah.
Has felt great. I can't teleport and reach out and kill a character in the backfield, so that feels pretty balanced. But I can say this guy in particular, screw him, which I like a lot. And Kurnoth bows feel like if you liked them before, you like them. If you don't like them, You didn't like them before, you still won't like them.
Right.
They are still very much what they're doing.
Yep.
Um,
I agree.
You said a high level, Vince and I mean, I've talked with both you guys about this before the show. Generally, you have to think about if you're going to run 6 or more bows, they're going to be at base of attacks each, 3s to hit, 2s to wound, -1 rend, 2 damage. And how you probably don't want, at least with the other variables that we have going on, where the bows can be out of line of sight, right? From other shooters, they can be hanging out in a wildwood, not targetable unless the unit has 10 wounds or more or whatever. So there's these other factors that go into play in terms of, impacting bows. 30-inch range, starting with that and the incredible value of that range. So I don't think you would want bows to be much better. They're going to feel expensive. There's going to be games where it's going to feel like you're not getting sufficient ROI from that investment. It's a big investment. If you do the 6 bows and arch rev, it's like $580. But anyway, generally it feels like it's about right. Otherwise, we would see a lot of shooting spam, which we've had in the past, and that's not a lot of fun.
Yeah, it just doesn't make for a good actual experience like in the game, and it doesn't make the army play. Like I hate when there just becomes the one way to play, right? And we don't want that. There should be costs. You're making some decision again when this does feel like what it wants you to do is play the combined arms. Try to be active in every phase, using all your abilities, and that's how you achieve your path to victory, by being smart, by reacting, by using the options you have, which I think is what makes this such a good book. Final insight: tree revs are the ideal veterans / expert conquerors, and you have an excellent, plus you have excellent non-veteran troop choices. I completely agree with that. Tree revs are maybe the only auto take in the book. Like I don't know that I would build a list without 5 tree revs, maybe 10 tree revs in it. Honestly, they are the best galley vet, maybe the best galley vet in the game. They're in there. They're in the conversation. They're incredible. And like 2 of them in an expert conquerors is not terrible. Not a bad choice. Not at all. Okay. They have been MVP at the end of that game. We were talking about a game right beforehand. At the end of that game, who was left alive on the table? 2 years of tree revs.
Yeah.
Just couldn't get him. Couldn't catch him. Those little jerks. I caught him once. Killed 4 of them. He rallied the next turn and rolled 3 6s. They popped, like the 3 of them popped back up and then they teleported away. I was like, you little jerks.
Yeah. Certainly plays, I think take what's theirs grand strategy is going to be a popular choice for
it will be,
list.
And they're so hard to pick up. Yep, I agree. Okay, let's talk rules. Let's get into it. All right, we begin with the allegiance abilities. By the way, I will say it again. If you haven't hit like yet, why don't you do so? Or subscribe or do those other fun things. Hit buttons. It's cool. It makes me happy. It makes all of us happy. And it helps other people find the channel, which is cool. Okay, you got glades. Are there too many? Probably. But here we are. We still live in this world where apparently you need 7 sub-factions. So, okay. Why not? But whatever. Places, we'll talk about them in a minute, obviously. Places of power, the rule we should all celebrate. If I could unfurl a banner that says mission accomplished behind me, I would do it here and one other place in the book we're going to talk about. Okay? But, places of power, pick 3 terrain features, wholly outside enemy territory, those are now overgrown. And lots of things are going to trigger off of that. Like that becomes a place you can go teleport to, and lots of things will trigger off of overgrown. Importantly, though, at the start of your hero phase, you also heal 1 wound allocated to each friendly Sylvaneth unit, wholly within 9 of an overgrown terrain or awakened wildwood. In many, but not all cases, and we will point out where the differences are, overgrown, your overgrown terrain and your awakened wildwoods are going to be interchangeable. They're just both functioning the same. Many, not all. We'll get there. I actually like the little 1 wound heal. It seems kind of irrelevant, but in the games I've been in, I've been like, it's just neat. It's just things ticking back up life. It's just useful. Your hero just kind of gets away, he's wounded, but then it's like tick, wound back, heroic recovery, tick, tick, a couple more wounds back. It just builds up. It's something. You got a lot of multi-wound people in this army. So just sitting around ticking wounds, it's not bad. And you're almost always going to be within 9 inches of something. That's what I'll say in my experience. So I think we talked about this already, but this is a celebration, right? This is all good. We love this.
Fantastic.
Okay. Let's go to From the Woodland Depths, because this is going to be a place of... David, I'm coming to you on the strike and fade. Okay, you're going to be the one talking about it here, leading the discussion.
All right.
But here we go.
Brilliant.
Walk the hidden paths. It does what you think it does. It does what it says on the tin. It's your teleport. That is to say, like, once per turn at the end of the movement phase, you pick a Sylvaneth unit that's wholly within 9 of either of these things, and you go to one of those other things. They just can't have anybody within 3 inches of them, and you have to be 9 inches away from the enemy. So just like Gnawholes, again, very similar, your teleport engine can be shut down by having an enemy just within 3 inches of it. So even if you could set up wholly within range, like, you know, of the thing you're teleporting to, and still be 9 away from the enemy, you can't do it if the enemy's within 3 inches. Okay. So basically like it always was, except now it also includes Overgrown, and it has that 3-inch limitation, which I really like. I like it in the Skaven thing. I like it here. It makes it easy for people to shut things down. You don't have to get in there and be like, hold on, let me measure all these little annoying... Oh, wait, hold on. Is there a way I can... Like, you're now like 10 9-inch sticks, setting them down and being like, oh, can I fit my guy? What if I move this up? Okay. Worst part of playing the game is always that crap.
It was that, yeah.
The more we can just jettison that nonsense and just be like, no, are you within 3? Cool, it shuts off. Done. Great. Next. Moving on. Fantastic. All right, and then strike and fade once per turn in your combat phase immediately after a friendly Sylvaneth unit. Immediately after. That is wholly within 9 inches of an Overgrown or Awakened Wildwood has fought. You can remove that unit field from the battlefield and set it up again. 9 inches, within 9 inches of some other Overgrown or Awakened Wildwood that, again, doesn't have anybody within 3 inches of it. Okay. So once a turn, you get to go in, punch, bounce. No strike back. Okay? That's the simple of it. Now, David, give me your read on strike and fade. What do you think about this ability?
I think a lot of things. I think that it's probably the most defining rule in the Battletome right now. I think everything else is great, but when it comes to the effect that has on gameplay, so sort of this idea with hero phase shooting and double tap shooting and all the stuff, it's this thing where you can put out the damage and it's completely non-interactive,
right?
And you can then be safely back in your lines. This is similar to that. Obviously, Unleash Hell has interaction, screens have interaction, redeploys can have interaction depending on how you got in there to charge. If you teleported, maybe not. If you moved, maybe yeah. So it's accomplishing that similar strategic concept, guerrilla war. It's doing so in a way which, to me, feels a lot more balanced. And it forces you to do some pretty heavy considerations when you're doing your list building. So I love Draika. Every time I'm sitting here playing, I'm going to play Draika, I'm going to use her this way and put her in. She automatically suddenly becomes, and now she's the strike and fade component.
Yep.
So I leave her in there with the Heartcare Berserkers, she will die.
Right.
And then planning out how am I going to use it, where am I going to use it, starts to then make your list building decisions for you. So it doesn't just define, hey, how I play the game, but it also defines how you're from building your lists.
Agreed. Now, the important things to remember, everyone, it is only once per turn, and it is only in your combat phase. This is what I was talking about with that tempo feeling, right? So you can't do it in the enemy turn. The enemy comes up, jumps you, you're getting jumped. That's what happens, right? And the other thing I'll say about this is one of those points of optionality that will give you so many capabilities to just do things you didn't necessarily expect you were going to need to do, but put yourself in a position. So, for example, multiple times in the games that have been played by me so far and been on our tables, strike and fade has been like, this exact thought has happened. Oh, I need to retreat this person. Like, they got charged, the enemy turn. They're in trouble. The normal thing I would do is retreat them, right? They shouldn't be in this fight because they're going to lose. But instead, what the player remembered was like, wait, I don't have to retreat. It's my turn now. This is my unit I was going to fight first with anyways. So they just fight and leave. Right? Like, strike. And then in both times this has happened, the units then basically faded into a place like to fortify an objective, or take an objective, or be in buffing range of something else. So like the first game when I ran this myself, I had my Lady of Vines. She was in combat. The combat had turned sour due to some bad rolls, and I was like, not against her, like that my ancient had just gotten his butt kicked by something he shouldn't have lost to. And I was like, all right, fine. I attack with her. She's gone. I bounced her back into the middle of my lines where her like ward save could now be protecting everything else. Right? And I'm in a good position going into the priority roll. Great. Right? That's what you would, that kind of thing. There's so much capability there in what this will allow you to do. Especially in turns 3, 4, 5. Because people can like cover your overgrown and your woods and stuff in the early game, but in the late game, there just isn't enough units. And objectives between your teleporting tree revs and your strike and fade people, their objectives are just in play. Right? Like if they leave something open for even a second, like we played Skitterstrand against Sylvaneth, and it was just insane. It was insane. Because it was just like everything is open. Right? So with that's, by the way, that has 8 objectives. It's just like impossible to cover everything. So okay. All right, cool. Verdant Blessing. This is your spell that people know that makes woods. Important things to note: casting value of 6, range of 18. You get 1 awakened wildwood terrain feature, which could be 1, 2, or 3 pieces. Because some of them will dictate how many pieces you have to set up. Some of them will like small, medium, or large, effectively. This one just says feature, so you can do any of those. You have to set it up more than 3 inches away from everything. Just everything. just everything. Which is the correct answer, by the way. So like you can't put it on objectives, you can't put it next to it. You can't sit down in spells, other models, other terrain, other woods. Whatever. My only sad thing about this is I wish this also had an option to just make something overgrown. That it could be a spell that just made a thing overgrown. That feels like the biggest miss.
Yeah, man.
I would have taken it at like a value of like it could have been like 6 to make a woods or 7, but then you can make something overgrown. Like it could have been a setting like that or something where it's a little bit harder. That would have still been fine. Just like I really do wish that you could have just made things overgrown. So,
Sure.
But hey, not the end of the world.
Change on this. It used to be Holy Within 24. So I'm just for what it's worth, point that out. Yeah, Holy Within 18 now.
Yep. Little bit shorter range, but still very doable, especially with something we're going to discuss here in just a moment. In just a moment. Okay. Seasons of War. This is a new thing. We've talked around this a lot in the lore. Like, obviously, when we all model our Sylvaneth armies, everybody's like, this is my autumn Sylvaneth, my winter Sylvaneth, spring, summer. Everybody picks a season because everybody loves that, right? How many times have you seen somebody do this in their modeling, right?
Yep.
Well, now you can do it for real, and it has some kind of consequence. So after you pick your Sylvaneth army, you have to pick which season applies to your army from the list below and record it on your roster. So like your Grand Strat, this is part of your army list. So we got 4 of them here. I'll go through them and then we'll talk about them. The Burgeoning, which is friendly Sylvaneth units that didn't charge and are within 9 of the woods get a 6-up ward. The Reaping, which is your from the woodland depths and places of power traits, which are both set at 9 inches, which is like your strike and fade and your walk the depths and healing and all that crap. That becomes 12 inches instead of 9 inches, so it gives you a bigger bubble. The Dwindling. In your hero phase, you can reroll 1 casting, unbinding, and dispelling roll, so long as the wizard's within 9 inches of overgrown or wood. And then the Everdusk, you subtract 3, winter, obviously. You subtract 3 inches, so now you're dealing with a 6-inch bubble for those things. But you get 6s or double taps, so any 6 to hit in melee becomes 2 hits. Okay. David, your experience with these, what do you think? What season do you like? Where are you living? What season are you in?
I like all of them.
Okay.
But for different reasons.
All right. Hit me with it.
So, sort of, to geek out real quick, I had been saying for months in private conversations that I wanted them to take the Heed the Spirit Song ability of the Treelet Ancient and make it Wargrove dependent. I got this instead. Could not be happier.
Sure.
So right out the bat, I kind of like Everdusk, not from a I'm going to play this perspective, but from a how do we make this really high difficulty to play army more accessible? Saying, hey, give up some of your faction abilities, get yourself some exploding sixes. It's just a nice press A to win. I like when lists have that. I never play that, but I like it when they have that because it makes it accessible. Then from there, the reaping, I am looking at if I'm sort of trying to answer the question, where am I going to get my extra tree? Could be a Treelet Ancient, could be the Acorn, could be leading into casting, or it could be I'm just going to run the reaping and not worry about it.
Yeah, just
Like,
have a
I'm going to
big
be
bubble.
fast, I'm going to
Sure.
be smashy. Yep. So it answers a question which I might have in my list building. The Burgeoning is obviously a 6-up board on when I didn't charge, aka on not my turn.
Yep.
So if I'm not trying to do magic, for me, that's the baseline Burgeoning. And the Dwindling is obviously if I'm saying I need to get the Spite Swarm Hive, I want to run Heartwood. Well, that's going to make me that Wargrove, the Dwindling, not Wargrove season. So from my perspective, they all bring a answer to certain questions you're trying to ask in your list, and they bring it in different ways. It gives you a lot of optionality. I really like that.
Yeah, I agree. And yes, Cameron in the chat, and this is absolutely true. I should have been a little more specific. The Reaping just adds range that you can teleport from, not to, because it modifies the first part of the thing. You can pick friendly Sylvaneth units with those abilities. You still have to end up within 9, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, cool. But it does extend your bubble significantly for that. Like, you're going to be within your bubble for a lot of that stuff. Okay. Tyler, what about you? Where you living?
So I think the Dwindling will be the most popular choice. We're
Yeah.
going to see that a whole lot.
Mini cogs, free mini cogs.
Yep. Cogs for life. And do you guys think this would have been too strong had it been the start of the game, you decide, as opposed to at the list stage?
Yes.
Why?
Because you would just tool around and tailor to what you knew you were facing. Like, it would just, like, if you knew you weren't facing somebody that could, like, have a lot of board presence or wasn't going to pull you apart or had a lot of magic and you knew you could poop woods everywhere, right? Then you could just easily shift into Everdusk. So you know you'll always have the 6th Sense optionality and you lean heavy into the offense, right? If you know you're going to push somebody where you need the magical pressure, you'll just go Dwindling, right? If you're going to have board presence where you know exactly what you just said, where you're not going to be able to lay down woods, right? Then you just switch over to the Reaping. Like, it would just create this weird situation where you're always optimally done.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And like, I get it. I don't think it would, like, break the game or break the book or whatever. But I actually like that you have to make some kind of choice here. If it had been the other direction, I wouldn't be complaining. But I think this is the right way, on balance.
Okay, right on. David, do you have a LDR
Yeah, I mean,
view on that?
obviously, I would love it to be let me optimize it.
Yeah.
And from a fluffy perspective, Daughters of Kain changes, the Battleground goes on, Ideneth change with their tides, and having us have a little bit of change of just, flexibility. It feel good for us. I think Vince raises a good point that it might not feel good for the opponent.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
there's enough maybe bad feel for the opponent in this book that maybe we don't need that too.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. Yeah. Cool. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
Okay.
fantastic. Really, really like these. Dwindling, yeah, highly popular. I think the Reaping could be a sneaky competitive choice. Yeah, as you get more games in and see the benefit of that extended range.
I'll tell you, I really want to push Everdusk. It's the one I haven't tried yet, or seen yet. But in my experience thus far, like, staying within 6 hasn't actually been that hard, just because of, like, how much you can kind of get out there. And the number of times I've, like, rolled a Spirit of Durthu and gotten multiple 6s and just been like, could have been more hits. Could have been more hits. Every time I'm just like, it could have been more hits. It's all I think when that guy's swinging his sword around. Like, if I go Everdusk, I'm immediately putting Durthu in the list. That's happening. Then I'll never roll 6s again and be sad. But hey, whatever.
And of course, we always had, 2.0, we were doing Holy Within 6. It was generally
sure.
fine. So
Yeah.
it's not unusual. Yeah.
Like, it's completely manageable, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Command traits. You mentioned this earlier. This is Look, this is a tight pack. GW, what happened there, guys? What's going on? You're writing compelling command traits here. I don't know what to do with this. I'd say there's 4 on this list that are like, I'm interested, with another one that could be good depending on like the world you lived in or the meta, right? And then one that I'm just like, whatever. All right, Gnarled Warrior. So this is your old stick it on the Tree Lord Ancient. Now he's ethereal. Great, there we go. Ethereal Tree Lord Ancient. They're fantastic. That's what it does. Ignore modifiers, positive and negative. Lord of Spites. In the combat phase, subtract 1 from the attack's characteristic of melee weapons used by enemy units to a minimum of 1 that finish a pile-in move within 3 of this general until the end of that phase. Fantastic. So they don't have to be attacking the general. And it's the whole unit. If they just finish any pile-in within 3, -1 attack. If any model in the unit finishes a pile-in move within 3, welcome to your -1 attack.
Yeah, finish a pile-in move. So the wording on that, is that just simply saying when you make a activation?
Like at the end of your pile-in, okay? If any of the models in the unit have finished that pile-in, now within 3 inches, that whole unit, one dude toes in to 2.9 inches at the end of his pile-in, fighting some other thing, right?
Yep.
-1 attacks.
And what I was getting at, meaning that it's not optional. You cannot avoid it if you're within 3 inches. Like if you do not move.
Right, correct. If he just puts himself up in the middle, like if this is on your ancient and he's behind, like he's behind Kurnoth, and to charge they have to get within half an inch of the Kurnoth and hence within 3 inches of the dude. That's it. They're stuck because they can't get farther away. Right? So they're going to finish that even if they don't move. They have now finished that move, that pile-in within 3 inches, and so -1 attack, right? So it's fun. It's good ability. I mean, there's many multi-attacking things in the game, and just subtracting, sapping 1 out of potentially multiple units is pretty good. And then the War Singer, I think the underrated one here, but I actually really like it a lot. If this general's on the battlefield at the start of the movement phase, add 3 inches to the move characteristic of friendly Sylvaneth units that start a move wholly within 12 of this general until the end of that phase. I really like this. I really like this, especially in something like Oakenbrow, where you got a bunch of dumb 5-inch idiots walking around, and it's suddenly they move 8, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm playing ogres now. I can do this. Gen S and Bartek, I'm assuming it still does, even if you opt not to pile. So like I'm assuming you have finished that option within 3 inches, so I'm assuming it still triggers.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. David, you might have looked into that. Did you look into the core rules?
Yeah, I did actually. I don't know for sure what it is, but the text in 12.2 for pile-in is you can move a model making a pile-in move up to 3 inches. Not you must.
Right, sure. You don't have to pile in. We know that. We know you can skip it, right? And
so the way I would read it is, sorry.
No. I think you're reading it the same way. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So if you chose to skip your pile-in, then it wouldn't get hit by the -1 to attacks, but then you also wouldn't be piling in, which is sort of debuffing yourself to keep from getting a debuff.
Yeah. Very fair point. Yeah.
Exactly. Like if you don't pile in at all, okay, like if you move at all, right, then that's it. You did it. You've now triggered into it. So if you decide to like be under Slobbity Bilepiper's fart noise, right, and not pile in, so a bunch of your models aren't attacking, you're probably taking the same penalty. So yes, that's exactly how I'm reading it too. I mean, it's worth an FAQ probably in just to say like, hey, if I just completely skip my pile in, do I? But I am within 3 inches. Do I suffer the penalty? But there you go. Yeah. All right. David, you lit up when I talked about Warsinger. I take it you're a Warsinger fan like myself?
Oh, so it's so weird, right? Like I love it. And I think it's probably the underdog. I think probably actually the most powerful trait on here in just you win in the movement phase. This thing buffs the movement phase. Like from my perspective, game theory, that's perfect. I almost never take it because my bias is to want to get really insulated from bad rolls units because I'm very unlucky. So I like Gnarled Warrior.
Sure.
But like just get so excited about thinking about what Warsinger enables. It just makes me happy deep inside. So yeah, I don't really have anything intelligent to say about it other than go fast, hit hard.
Yeah. Like, when your Lady of Vine suddenly is moving like 11 inches, like, that's such a crazy move value. Getting your Kurnoth up to 8-inch moves is such a different feel to that unit versus clomping around at 5 inches. Like, it really does change the game a lot. You're a very mobile army already in your teleports, but teleports are teleports, and you're going to end up 9 away, right? And lacking a Spite Swarm on a unit, it's like, well, I hope you're good at rolling 9s or a Gur Battle Mage or some nonsense like that. Which I would just love if we just binned that forever. But hey, here we are.
Yeah, guys, I think it's one of the more important additions that they've made as a command trait because, as you've intimated, it puts on the table a playstyle that was not there previously for the most part, unless you ran a non-Glade in 2.0, right, David? We had a lot of conversations about running Warsinger outside of a Glade, but you didn't want to lose all the benefits of a Glade. That was very, very prominent among competitive Summit players, that conversation. But now it's built in. Yeah, I think this will be a popular choice over time. It may not necessarily start out as the most popular because of one in particular we're about to get into. But yeah, it's incredible protection as well, of course, against a magic, spell dom meta. If you're trying to go 5-0 to tournament, but you're worried about Seraphon, Zinch, Lumineth, even Korn.
Shutting down your Woodsing and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, where at least this is a known value, right? You're not, yeah. So.
And I should say, some of the faster things in this book will just shoot off across the board now when under this effect. Like, they get real fast. So, yes. But let's talk about its main competition, and that's your Sylvaneth Wizard hero only in the aspects of renewal, which is, of course, Spell Singer. The one that I think you're right, we're going to see this a lot. We're going to see this a lot comboed with the fall, whatever the one, I remember what the name of it is, but the fall.
Yeah, the dwindling.
The dwindling, thank you. The mini cogs with mini cogs. When this general attempts to cast a spell, before making the casting roll, you can pick one friendly awakened wildwood. Does have to be a wildwood. Cannot be overgrown. This is one of those places where that delta matters. Okay. If you do so, and the spell is successfully cast and not unbound, you must measure the range and visibility for that spell from that friendly awakened wildwood. Okay, let's make this real for everybody. We've got mini cogs already in the reroll to cast. Now let's get mini portal. Actually, better portal. Like, this is way better portal. This is super portal. Okay? So, let's assume that our hero pack contains the Warsong flute player, Mr. Toots, okay, and a Tree Lord Ancient. Let's just say. Okay? The Tree Lord Ancient, he can just pop a woods out. Anywhere. He doesn't have a limited range anymore. He can just be like, pop, pop, there's a small woods. It's somewhere. He has to heed the normal restrictions of 3 inches, of course. But he can just put that thing anywhere. That piece anywhere. He could put it in the opposite back corner. Behind the entire enemy army. That would be perfectly legal. Now we've got our Warsinger. Mr. Toots is the general. And he's back corner boarded. So he's completely out of all unbind range for anybody who isn't a frog. Who isn't a mystical frog. Okay? And he's going to be like, all right, now, guess what, boys? Tooting through them woods. Right? Maybe he's got an arcane tome, so he's like a triple caster now. He's within range of your own home wood, so he's +1 to cast. So he's like re-rolling one of those casts with a +1. He's tooting. He's doing things. He's summoning other. Maybe he's getting out the Spite Swarm Hive super easily and efficiently. Whatever. This dude becomes magic artillery battery, just like back bunkered, completely safe, far from everything else. And yet his spells are super portaled. They're just emanating out on the board. You know, like he can just shoot out whatever he needs to. You need to get that Tree Song we'll talk about in just a moment. A very impressive spell that is very dangerous. Way out deep in the board. Sure, he can do that. No problem. You don't have to worry about that. So, yeah, this is a very potent ability. This is like, you can between the season and the command trait, you can already dupe 2 endless spells effectively into your army without paying the points.
Oh, speaking of endless spells, Vince, there is a potential fact question here. They just designate spell. They did not say spells or endless spells.
Yeah.
Are we? Yeah, there's some debate. I'm not sure what the answer is. David and I have talked about it. I think he has a case when it comes to the core rules language.
Well, I hate it. But I think
Yeah,
that's
it's
how
not
it is.
right. I don't think we should be allowed to do endless spells through this thing. That feels like a little much and probably a terrible idea. But yeah, it does appear that anyway, that we need a fact on this.
Yeah, let me answer something in the chat that's coming up. Why do it with the War Song when the Branch Witch has the same spell with a lower casting cost? Because he has a bonus to cast and is a multicaster and is just a better caster and does it like it's good. And as well, yes, any spell they cast. So when you make him a triple caster through like an arcane tome, let's say that was his artifact, he can just woods. He can just be pumping everything out of any woods. Yes. Or out of one wood, sorry. Yeah. I tend to agree with you, Tyler. You can't bring endless spells out of here, but it's an FAQ question. I can also very much see the argument for it is, which, David, are you coming down on the side of yes, you can?
I hate it, but but I'm trying to find the rules, but it's whatever. Basically, an endless spell, when you're summoning it, there's a spell you cast to summon that endless spell.
Endless
Use the
spell,
word
yeah.
spell. My sense is rules is intended. Every time I've seen it for both, it always says both. This doesn't say both, which makes me think rules is intended. It doesn't work that way. I'm never going to play it. It fires an endless spell unless an FAQ says specifically I can do it. But I think rules is written versus rules is intended. I think there's a better argument that it does it than it doesn't. I just hate it.
Totally fair.
Ooh.
This is
guys-
definitely an FAQer. And what this, look, if you can, okay, if you can put an endless spell out of it, then congratulations, Sylvaneth. I welcome you to the Purple Sun crew. Welcome to Team Purple. Where in every list we'll have a Tree Lord Ancient and a Warsong Revenant. And the Warsong Revenant will backboard on the reroll castable +1 to cast Purple Sun. Because that's what's going to happen. You're going to set that woods up 3 inches from the front of their line or whatever, as close as you can get it to that relative back of their line, wherever their good meat is. You're going to get out the Purple Sun, float it through their line, accidentally win the game sometimes when you bin a bunch of their heroes on a 1 because Purple Sun is stupid and should be changed immediately. Like it is a garbage spell. And then it'll just sit there in the middle of their line giving -1 to save, and then in comes Alpha Strike team of like 6 Kernoth Scythes catapulted forward by a Spite Swarm Hive, who are now -4 rend and just being like, oh, this is so easy. Everything here just dies. So that's what's going to happen.
Easily -5 rend.
Sure. Like, yeah, get the tree song going too. That way you can make it -5 rend. Like, there's your spells right there. It's like 3 spells. Boom, Sun, Hive, Tree Song. Done and dusted, -5 rend, Scythe Boys coming in, doing some work. Kill everything they touch. It doesn't have an exceptional ward save. That would be his 3 spells. Like, that is the list. My problem with it is if you can put in endless spells, I do not know why you would build a different list right now.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
That will be the best list. Because you will, against anybody except Seraphon, right? You will resolve that spell. You will resolve those spells quite easily. You will like catapult 500 points into their line and it will crush the crap out of their army. And you will have some games where you just accidentally win because the Purple Sun just showed up in the middle of their lines and you tagged every hero they have and you rolled 2 1s. And it was like, oops, 600 point of your army dropped dead. And then the Scythes came in and lifted another amount of points. And by the way, it's going to flip to your hero phase, and I hope I didn't Purple Sun off your dude who could actually dispel this thing, because if I did, guess what? Here we go again, baby.
Just a couple of points to actually, you mentioned 2 endless spells.
Yeah, you
the
can.
War Song, of
Somebody
course.
else cast the stupid thing. You
But
got a
then
Tree Lord
cast
Ancient
Hive.
sitting right there. He'll cast the Hive. There you go.
Yeah, someone
Even
else
if-
cast the Spite Swarm.
Yeah.
And even if it's not Purple Sun, there's plenty of other very strong endless spells that, like the Skull Root alone, that you could have a position to immediately hit multiple units with D6 mortal wounds from Skull Root popping out through an Awakened Wildwood that's set up just more than 3 inches from the enemy lines through your ancient.
Sure, like
But,
that's
yeah.
cute, but you ain't paying for a Vengeful Skullroot when Purple Sun exists. I mean, unless you're just
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
unless you're,
I mean-
you're damaged in the brain. Okay, like you're gonna pay.
Yeah.
Because
I
Vengeful
mean, even
Skullroot
if-
is like the same amount of points.
Right. I mean, even if Purple Sun has changed, yeah, it's
Sure.
it's just a terrible idea.
Yeah.
To allow endless spells through this thing. So anyway.
So like that's my point. Like why I don't want Spellsinger to allow endless spells to cast out of it is because if it is, I really do think you've suddenly got one crystalline list, and all the beauty of the internal balance and multi-path to victory of this book shuts off.
And
Because like even if you didn't want to Alpha Strike into their line, even if you weren't going to catapult 6 scythes forward or something like that, it's still super powerful to just be able to do that, to get that thing rolling around in their line with a caster that can't be revisited on, right? Like, it's just so good. Yeah. And by the way, Bartek, the percentage chance is actually higher than that. You said since Purple Sun moves twice per round, if you go first, you can actually have a 30% chance to remove something round 1 before they can escape. It's better than that because remember, Purple Sun makes that check for everything within 3 inches. So it's actually just a case of how many things are within 3 inches of your sun. So like if you can get 4 of their heroes near it, then you have 4 bites at the apple of rolling a 1. So it's 16% times, blah, 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 whatever. And then if it goes again and you do the same thing again, now you have 8 rolls. Any one bins something. It's way more than, at that point, you're way over a 30% chance. So, at any rate. Yeah, Sun is stupid. Okay, cool beans. The other two are kind of nothing. But Radiant Spirit is, I guess, depending on the Purple Sun meta and how much it's important, Radiant Spirit might be good counterplay. It gives you a 4-up spell ignore. So, spells are endless spells.
on this one, Vince, it does explicitly call out spells or endless spells. So, which, related back to our conversation we just had.
Right, which is something. Like, that ain't nothing.
Yeah.
It ain't nothing. Yeah, but good command traits.
Absolutely.
Overall. Like, they're functional. As you said, David, I think you really made the point, and Tyler, maybe both of you kind of said it, is, okay, got it, Bartek, you meant per unit. Yes, I agree. Like, these open up play. What I really like about 2 of these is I do feel, maybe even 3 of them, is that they do open up actual, like, paths to victory, play style, list building concepts, right? And that's great. That's fantastic. I love it. So, yeah. Maybe everybody will take Radiant Spirit in the Purple Sun meta. I don't know. Maybe that even opens up 5. I mean, if we saw magic and endless spells and everything really becoming a major part of the meta, Sun or not, that the value of that command trait will skyrocket, and suddenly you really do have 5 in play. Okay.
Play.
Boom. Artifacts. You've got a Gladius. You're going to give it to Durthu if you pick this. Cool. It gives you D3 extra attacks at the start of the combat phase. This is just Durthu's weapon. That's what it is. He's the only person you're going to give this to. That's what it does. If you want to make a Spirit of Durthu, do some stuff, this is one of your choices. Next. Crown of Fellbowers. At the start of the combat phase, pick one enemy unit within 6 inches, add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by a friendly Sylvaneth units that target that unit. This is actually my favorite. I freaking love this thing. I like this on Durthu way more than I like the D3 attacks. I want 4 attacks that resolve. I don't need 5 to 7 attacks on Durthu at 6 damage. I need 4 attacks that resolve. Because 24 damage will get me there. That's what I want. Okay? And this one makes that resolve because it puts him on 2s to wound against that unit. But it doesn't have to be Durthu, obviously. It could be anybody. And then the Seed of Rebirth. First time the bear is slain before removing them from play. Roll a die. On a 1, the bear is slain. On a 2+, you heal D3 wounds. And it negates the rest. But they're still stuck there. So, cool. Okay.
2 out of 3 of those will definitely see play. But, yeah. Probably not
thing
the
I
Seed
love
Rebirth that
about
much.
the sorry.
Good.
Hold on. I just want to answer something in the comments. Assistant Ref says, just a note, but endless spells go wild outside 30 inches. So if you did cast from out of the unbind range through the wood, you'd need to move it back within 30 or your opponent gets to move it on their turn. Okay. Yes, that is true. That is absolutely true. It's very easy for you to reposition your guy who cast it. So you could do that and then just float him back whenever you need to. But at the same time, I'm not sure that I really care. If I have it set directly in the middle of their lines and it can only go 8 inches, it still might be in a place where it can just literally trigger. So, at any rate, go ahead.
So Crown of Fell Bowers, one of the few ways to get an easy +1 to wound onto Spite Lance Riders, which can very easily in Heartwood make them 2s and 2s against pick a unit.
Yep, I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, I really like the Crown of Fell Bowers a lot. Like it's what I used when in my list and just had a grand old time with it. Durthu did not derp through for me. So there you go. That's what I was looking for. Tyler, what's your take?
Yeah, no, I think you guys nailed it. Yeah, Crown of Fell Bowers, we'll see some play in Oaken Brow. I think definitely Spite Rider Lancers, it's a nice option. Or, yeah, maybe with some power pair comboing with Durthu, having it to try to get more leverage, more return. Just the 1 to 3 attacks, as you said. You know, even I hadn't thought a lot about your point, Vince, of just that pure equation of 1 to 3 attacks versus the +1 wound on Durthu. No other considerations, just that alone. You think there's a better case for Crown?
I do, because I read D3 as 1, first off.
Sure. Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
every roll I've ever made with a D3 seems to be 1. So like if I have to choose between +1 attack on a single profile, right? Because that's what we're talking about, his sword. And I'll take the +1 to wound on 4 attacks over the +1 attack every day of the week.
Right.
That's easy math in my head.
A number of lists that David and I have been writing in prep for the show. We've been looking at power pair comboing or even trio comboing damage output in a particular spot, and we'll get into that later when we get into some lists. But yeah, no, that's really interesting.
And no, my bias, I'll be honest about it. My bias has definitely been towards the Greenwood Gladiates, unless I'm running a different unit. But I haven't actually done the math on it.
We should, yeah. That'd probably be a good thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about the Crown is the synergistic capability. Like you mentioned, it's for this other unit of Spite Riders coming in or whatever, but that's just it, right? If I have, like, this army often gets to pick its fights, right? Like you very much often can control the pace of combat, especially in your turn. Of like who's fighting who is often something you're going to be able to sort of decide, right? And so you multi-charging a unit is not uncommon or impossible. Right, so you're reaping huge benefits out of the +1 to wound when it's applying to multiple units attacking into this one target, whereas the Gladius is it's always the same thing. It's like it's D3 attacks on Durthu. That's not bad, but there's a lot more ceiling on the Crown. That's what I would say.
I'd agree with that. Sure.
We'll talk about that when we get to. Atharel said, curious about the Fellbower redundancy on Kurnos near an Arch Revenant. Doesn't that de-incentivize the item? I think it's just a question of your list. That's like, we'll talk about it when we get to Kurnos and the Arch Revenant. It's just a question of what list direction are you going in, right? I mean, I would still say probably the most powerful or the most commonly chosen artifact out of Sylvaneth is going to be Arcane Tome. So, I'm not sure we're probably still there. Okay. Then we've got our relics. I don't know why these aren't on the same page. Like, I guess we just really wanted to use this super cool piece of artwork. But, hey, whatever. So then we have our spellcasty items. Acorn. It makes a wood. Cool. That's what it does. Again, I wish it just had the option to pick an existing piece of terrain and make it overgrown. It doesn't seem like that'd be broken. Why not? That'd be cool. So, fine. But anyways, it makes a wood. It does what it says on the tin. And it is at the start of your hero phase, so it can be used to trigger other hero phase related shenanigans around woods. But it is wholly within 12 inches of the bearer, so it's quite close. Lumineth's lamp. Yeah, or Luneth's, not Lumineth, sorry. Luneth's lamp, I apologize. skip. Okay. You're not going to pick this thing. This is not ever a pick.
It used to be +2 to Unbind as well. It should have still been +2 Unbind, and it would have been an interesting artifact.
Sure.
Not sure why they took that away. Yeah.
Like, I guess if endless spells are just absolutely everywhere, okay, and dispelling them really becomes the name of the game, then sure, maybe this thing has a purpose. But that feels like a real reach. And then the Vesperal Gem. This thing, first of all, how dare you? Both of you. How dare you?
I've always had this, Vince.
How dare you steal this Skaven item? Okay? You didn't think I would notice this green gem? Okay? That you just happened to, this green magic rock. Okay? No, I know it doesn't say it's actually green, but it's green. We know it. Okay? And what does it do? Yes. So this spell, once per turn in your hero phase, before the bearer attempts to cast a spell from the lore of the Deepwood, you can just auto-cast it. And it cannot be unbound. After the effect of the spell has been resolved, roll a die. On a 1, the bearer suffers D3 mortal wounds. What a hilarious Skaven-y downside to something. Like, yeah, we all know those Sylvaneth taking the risk-reward route for their stuff. But anyways, it's fine. It's a good item. And certainly it could make some of the very high casting cost spells interesting again. Or casting value, sorry. Spells interesting again. Since they can be auto-cast and can't be unbound. But it is only the lore of the Deepwood. Not endless spells. Not making the woods. That's not in the Deepwood.
Yep.
Like, those spells we're about to flip to. Those 6 spells. That's what you can do. All right. David, what's your take on our wizard magic items here?
I love the Vesperal Gem. I mean, casting can't be unbound. Tree Song, which we'll get to in the next page, it seems pretty great.
Yep.
There's probably a pretty hilarious play with taking a Tree Lore Ancient, making him ethereal, giving the Vesperal Gem, giving him the Throne of Vines, and binding a Kron Spine to him, then doing that into the middle of the enemy army. I'm not saying it's good, I'm saying it's hilarious.
Yeah. Just these two nearly unbreakable things just marching up the middle of the board. Yeah. Yep. And
of course, the Acorn, it's the similar question I mentioned. You're looking at how you're going to get your woods, how you're going to play with that. Reaping is a solution, Tree Lore Ancient's a solution, Acorn's a solution. So it brings some solutions, which I like. Mm-hmm. And again, Lunas Lamp, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with Assistant Ref in the comments who said that it is a short range and it can sometimes be hard to set up depending on the board you're on or where you're positioned or stuff like that, right? Because it is at the start of your hero phase, so, your people can't get out of the way. Like, you got to set up your caster kind of knowing if you're wanting to do it turn 1, your caster's got to be in the right place to do this, and so on and so forth. So, yeah. Okay. Cool.
To me, there's a lot of considerations with the Acorn. It used to be not played that much because of the reasons that we're discussing. I'm more curious about it now for a variety of reasons, such as to what degree could you hold on to it and then look to drop it in round 2? How often could you reliably execute that? Have it on a a war song, keep your war song alive and drop that in round 2 when it's a little more upfield.
Yeah,
the Holy Within 9 helps, or potentially Holy Within 12 in terms of a footprint setup. That helps with Acorn as well. So there's one of the main factors in 2.0 was, Vince, when we did our review show, we were emphasizing Dreadwood as the pretty obvious competitive choice. It became the competitive choice. I mean, that was just obvious to a lot of us. Everybody was saying that. So played a lot of games without Dreadwood, and it quickly became apparent how critical, just necessary, the Ancient was because of the auto Wildwood, right? Particularly in a Magic Spelldom era that we were in 2020, late 2019, early 2020. To what
Which
degree
we
is
may
that
be
still
entering again right now, by the way.
We may be entering again, yeah. So to what degree is that still the case? Do you have to run an Ancient to have that wood? Or do you have enough other options, including potentially Acorn with some of these variables, to get the job done sufficiently?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, one of my games I was running Thankful against Sylvaneth, and once I got Thankful upfield, where, like, he could cover all the unbinds I needed, for like the key stuff. I mean, it stopped, like, suddenly the Sylvaneth player was not resolving spells anymore, right? Because I'm unbinding on a +3. So.
Still, yeah, emphasizes the value of Sylvaneth as opposed to maybe a lot of other armies of being low drop. I mean, we've always had that as an army, as a faction, as David knows, a strong case for us to have that optionality to go first when we need to get our magic off, except against frogs that are unbinding with +2 board wide.
Sure.
But, to be outside of techless unbind, etc. Yeah.
Yep.
I have some thoughts on that. We can talk about them in the list building section, potentially.
I agree. Let's get into it in the lists. We are going to do some lists at the end of the show, so stay tuned. Like for lists. Okay, Spell Lords. I'm not going to cover all this. To me, like, Tree Song is sort of the name of the game, but I'm not saying the rest are bad. I'm not at all. But I just don't want to read 6 spells out. Tree Song I am going to read.
Spells as the last book.
Yeah, with 2 notable changes, which we'll focus in on here, which is Throne of Vines and Tree Song. Okay. So, Throne, first off, very different spell now. Way different spell now. Throne of Vines is a spell that has a casting value of 9. Yikes. Yikes on bikes. In a book that, does not have a huge amount of bonuses to cast. But again, the gem, like, if you have gem, then Throne of Vines becomes interesting, I suppose. If successfully cast at the end of each phase, until the start of your next hero phase, you can heal 1 wound allocated to the caster. You get a hot. This is like the first implementation in Warhammer of a true heal over time. And it's pretty strong, too. Like, it's a good hot. That's a lot of healing. Every phase that ticks. Bing, 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 bing. Like, there's ticking a lot of phases. So, okay, fine. And then Tree Song. Tree Song is a spell that has a casting value of 7 and a range of 16. And again, with all of these, think about, like, when it comes to things with range, like with Tree Song, you need to think about spell singing it out of woods as well, right? And so, if successfully cast, pick 1 friendly awakened wildwood within range of the caster. Here we are again. Only awakened wildwoods, not overgrown. And this is the one that really kills me, because this is why people will still have to have some trees they summon. It's because of this spell, because they'll want this spell.
Sure.
Until the start of your next hero phase, improve the rend characteristic of melee weapons used by friendly Sylvaneth units by 1 while they are wholly within 9 inches of that awakened wildwood. Woo! +1 to rend, baby. Is strong. Because that same woods could end up being your launch pad target that your Kurnoth emerged from, and then charge with their +3 and blah, 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 blah. So, there we go. Most of the others are pretty similar-ish. I should say...
changed. Dwellers changed events from a 6 to a 5. So got the key 5. Yeah, so that opens up double vortex play or even triple vortex play if you really want to go ham in your list building, where you could do what we talked about earlier, like the Ancient plus, you don't necessarily need the Arcane Tome, but say you got Arcane Tome, the War Song, 3 spells, Dwellers below, do Dwellers, and the Unleash Swarm of Spites from the War Song through Spell Singer, make a spell portal for your Branch Witch, have the Branch Witch send Unleash Spites through the spell portal with a 27-inch threat range itself. So, yeah, you can have some pretty crazy AoE damage if you really lean into it.
Yep. I will also state we should just very quickly talk about Virtuous Harmony. It is a useful spell. It is another interesting thing that could come out of the gem, because you pick... it's got a range of 18 inches, a cast value of 7, which is a slightly tough cast, but again, the gem can make it happen. And you pick a unit wholly within range, and you return 1 slain model to that unit. If you pick Dryads, Tree Revs, or Spite Revenants, you get D3 back. The use of this is obviously popping back on Kurnoth or your bug people, especially if you don't have Revenants around who are doing the same thing. But you can actually generate quite a bit of like model return out of this spell, and something like the Revenants, the Bug Rider Revenants, which we'll talk about later, which is pretty potent. 6 Kurnoths are hard to lift. Being able to pop things back into those units is pretty good. Pretty good, it turns out.
Mm-hmm.
So. All right, did I miss anything with the spells, gentlemen?
No, that's the thing. Tree Song's amazing. I always take it. I never not take it.
Yeah, it's so good. It's real good. It's real good. Okay. Glades. We'll run through these kind of quickly, because whatever. We'll talk about it as we want to, and then I want to kind of where you're. I'm gonna just run through them fast. These 4 and the other 3, and then we'll jump back and say where are we leaning. What's our glade and why do we like it? Does that sound good? We'll each do a round of that. Okay, Oakenbrow, Tree Lord battle line, and all your big tree people never chart. I mean, that's not actually what the rules say, but that is what the rules are. Okay, because you have the amount of wounds. You're treated as suffering half the amount of wounds you actually have. Because they're 14 wound models, and the way that rounding and this stuff works here, even when you round up, or when you round because you round up, basically unless you have 13 wounds on, you use your top profile. So if you're 1 wound from death, you have to go down to the next profile slot. But if you're at 1 wound from death and it ticks to your turn and you're near a woods, hey, you heal back to 12 and you're back to your full profile. If you love Durthu always having 6 damage, and you want to run big tree people, Oakenbrow is the place for you. This is the Timmy choice that will not surprise you. Little spoiler, this is my favorite one. Gnarlroot, this is still the casty one. Once per turn when you're making a casting roll or unbinding roll for a Gnarlroot wizard wholly within 9 of an overgrown or wildwood, you can roll 3d6 instead of 2d6 and then remove 1 and use that as your casting or unbinding roll. So, cool. Good. I should state, this is still just casting and unbinding. This did not get dispelling, which is relevant for things like killing endless spells. But obviously, if you're leading into the magic strat, this is the place to be. Heartwood, your Kurnoth battle line. After deployment, but before the first battle round begins, you get 3 different enemy units. +1 to hit rolls for attacks made by friendly Heartwood units that target those units. All of your people. Now, obviously, and that's both range and melee. Quite potent for those 3 units. But obviously, you're going to have heavy Kurnoth. This is an easy way to put your shooters down to hit on 3s. Or if you pick a hero to ignore something like to basically counter Lookout Sir, something like that. So you stay on 4s. All sorts of different things like that. So you could
counters. It's around roar. Gets around roar.
It's around roar
for your units. So you're always going to be that 2s to hit for a lot of your key pieces.
Yep. Yeah. Barring any negatives, absolutely. Yes, that is a good point. Jen said also Gnarlroot can work on your unique casting, your unique characters, which is a good point. It does let you really help power out the Lady of Vine spell. I agree with that completely. That's a great point, Jen. Ironbark. Skip. Pass.
Literally.
We should probably just go ahead and get rid of that one if they don't like get dwarves for some reason. That was the fun thing about them. Just like random dwarves hanging out in the woods. Winterleaf, enemy units within 3 inches of a friendly Winterleaf. This one's it's wild, and it's wild that it probably won't get played very much, and I'm happy about that. All right. Because it's just like, this is like NPE, the subfaction. Here we go. Enemy units within 3 inches of Winterleaf units cannot retreat. In addition, if you're also Everdusk, which of course that would be the fun thing to do, right? Is to be like the Winter. On the Winter group. Then if you're also in Everdusk, then those same units that are within 3 of your people cannot be removed from the battlefield through an effect that would allow them to be set up again later in the battle. Yes, that's right. That super annoying teleport stopping thing that exists in the awful battle plan, you can now just stick on all of your units. So nobody can teleport away from you. What a great time. What a great time that'll be. Brutal.
Braving Legion, but better.
Yeah, exactly. That's such a good way to put it. Dreadwood gives you Spite Rev battle line, and the cool thing about this is once per battle you can walk the hidden paths, which is your move between trees twice, but one of them has to be a Spite Rev. And then once per game you can strike and fade twice, but one of them has to be a Spite Rev in it. Super cool. For people who want to run like Spite Swarms, hello. Welcome to your viable option. So that's great. And then
Spite Revs are quite good now. So yeah, it's definitely viable.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agreed. Harvest Boon, this is the one I have the most problem with because this is probably too good. But here we are. It gives you the Flying Bug battle line. I didn't want to type out Spite Rider Lancer and whatever, Seeker Revenants or whatever they're called. It's the bugs. It's the new Flying Bugs are your battle line. After deployment, but before the first battle round begins, you can move each friendly one of these Spite Rider Lancers and Revenant Seekers up to 12 inches. Good lord! I would state these are flying 12/14-inch move units on their own. So, wow. That's a lot of pregame move. Like, take that, Nurgle Air Force. You got nothing.
Sure.
8 inches and 8 inches is for chumps. Chumps! 12 and 12. Way better. Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the Lancers when we get there and whether or not they can play the role of Eels or Blight Lords or other things that have classically taken this kind of a fly alpha strike role. I would say the answer is probably not, but we'll talk about it. Okay.
Hopefully not. Yeah.
Hopefully not, yes, is the answer. We can all hope. Because I don't want to see Harvest Boon become the only thing anybody plays. That would be really...
No. Yeah.
All right. Tyler, what's your pick? What's your sub-faction? What's your take? Why do you like it? What are you going for?
Cool. So, high level, I think Hardwood and Allroot will see the most play, especially early on. I think Hardwood is the easy answer. Personally, having a hard time getting away from Allroot. I think you can build competitive combined arms list. When you go up against Spelldoms, you've still got enough play in the other, areas of the toolbox. You can compete against Croak or Teclis or whatever. So yeah, probably still Nullroot for me personally, but I'm highly intrigued by Winterleaf because it reminds me of old school Tree Lord Ancient, ignoring -1 rend, Moonstone of the Hidden Ways artifact, once per game, deploying 4 inches away, hit that charge in the battalion whose name I'm forgetting, where you could not retreat. Oh
God, you could retreat. Household?
Household Battalion.
There you go.
Good pool, Vince Venturella, love it. Yep, Household Battalion. It won me so many games, particularly at NashCon. I think I did it to Tom, and it's just amazing. Yeah, so I think some competitive players are going to find some play in Winterleaf.
Yep, absolutely. All right, David.
Yeah, so obviously, I think there's a lot of competitive play in Winterleaf. I'm never going to do it myself, not because it's not great, but because
sounds like the
not
worst
me.
time. Yeah.
I like my opponents to have fun.
Yeah. What's your sub-faction? Screw you. I'm sorry, what? No, that's the sub-faction I chose. It's just screw you. It gives me nothing. I get nothing from it. No bonuses are rendered or offered to my army in any way. All I do is make your game worse.
And if you run it with Tree Lords, it's so much worse.
Yes. Yes, exactly. No retreat.
Oh, man.
No teleporting. No surrender. No piling in. Nothing.
Piling in.
You will sit there and you will get
Just
punched
sit
in the
there.
face.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, I'm with Tyler on in my list building. I have a hard time getting away from Nullroot because that Spite Swarm Hive is such a good answer. But if it were not for Bounty Hunter meta, I would be all in on Dreadwood. Bounty Hunter meta
sure.
takes a lot of the patina off that for me.
Yep.
And I am definitely gonna run a Entmoot list at some point in Oakenbrow. That just looks fun to me.
Let me tell you what, it's super fun. It's so much fun. I ran an Oakenbrow with Lady of Vines, Tree Lord Ancient, Spirit of Durthu, 3 Tree Lords, 5 Tree Revs. Done and dusted. That's somewhere close to 2,000 points, less than. And I was like, I feel completely happy with this. I am ready to rock and roll. Let's do this. Anyways, so it's fun. Yeah, Oakenbrow's my pick. I love Tree Lord's battle line. I love that you get to actually have Durthu on his 6 damage sword, like the whole game. It feels so different. He's just a monster running around, just chopping everything to bits. He was the only guy I had I could rely on. I will point out, let's just really drive home Winterleaf here. Because I do have to wonder if there won't be some Winterleaf play. Because you're right, like with any kind of Tree Lord getting in the mix, especially a regular Tree Lord who can pull both these tricks at once, but it could be like a combo of a couple different Tree Lords. Keep in mind, they also have their Monstrous Rampage, which can make you fight last on a very low number. So now you're stealing from old Slanesh. So good choice there. It is completely reasonable that in fighting the enemy units, you cannot retreat, you cannot pile in, you cannot teleport away, and you very often, I wouldn't say always, but you very frequently fight last. Like, boy, what a great time this is got. Like, that feels
yeah. I mean, it's
rough.
hard, right? It's hard to not imagine there's not some alpha pinning play, low drop list where you're outside of Imbind range, you execute your battle mage, your Spitestorm Hive, you get your boys in. They both can go in because they're not limited by walk the hidden paths. They've got spirit paths built in. Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, and then you're forced to chew through them, which some armies with mortal wounds will be able to do it quickly, but some armies won't. It could take a little time to get through them.
Yeah. And by that time, you've won the game, theoretically, in many cases, right? So, because you're just 2 up on the objective since you theoretically bunkered them in. So, okay, cool. Ba-boom. Warscrolls. Warscrolls. All right, let's get into them Warscrolls. Okie dokie. Pictured here, a Warscroll you will very rarely see on the table. Okay, so, it was a Dryad, by the way. Alariel the Everqueen, 840 points. She is still rocking those amazing thighs, I've got to say. She has the best leg game in all of AOS. I'm not trying to say anything here. I'm just saying, mad respect. Okay, she does not skip leg day, and I respect that. She's got them gains. She is still a lot of what she did before. She's okay in damage, triple caster, knows all the spells in the lore of the Deepwood, can fly. Let's talk about some slight changes, and also one really, really big change. Okay, she still summons stuff. She still summons a unit, all those kind of things. She can still run and shoot. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Life Bloom. In your hero phase, she heals 2d6 wounds. Cool. So she heals a lot, right? I mean, 2d6 is not a small amount of healing. If you don't kill her and it ticks to your hero phase, she heals. It used to tick a pulse healing is what you're going to say, right, Tyler? Which
yeah, D3 for everybody else. Yeah, within 30, so...
Regarding that D3 within 30, it's functionally just been moved to affection rule. We get it with or without her for being close to woods. Which is
everybody just gets 1.
Yeah, that's true.
Which, again, D3s are just 1, so it's basically the same rule.
Sure.
Okay. In addition, once per battle, at the end of your hero phase, if this unit has been destroyed, you can roll a dice and add the number of the current battle round to the roll. On a 6+, you can set up this unit on the battlefield wholly within 12 inches of an overgrown terrain feature or friendly awakened wildwood, more than 9 inches from all enemy units, and with 8 wounds allocated to it. Okay. Now, this is at the end of your hero phase. So this is after her heal. So when she comes back, she doesn't immediately heal. It's also past the time when you can heroic recovery, because that's the start of your hero phase. She can't cast spells, so she can't cast regrowth on herself to heal a D3 wounds, because we're in the end of the hero phase step. Okay. So she's just at 8 wounds. Now, in the future, if you roll into a double turn, or blah, 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 anything like that, it flips to the enemy hero phase, goes to the enemy turn, you can heroic recovery her there, just, of course, as always. But here's the really relevant part about this rule. Here we go. When you first read this, you think, okay, well, I've got to get a 6+. If she dies in round 1, because I add the current battle round, that means I've got to roll a 5 to bring her back. But no. No. That is not how this rule works. Once she's destroyed, you just have this floating trigger you can choose to activate at the end of your hero phase. So let's say she goes ham and dies in round 1. Let's just, you throw this crazy lady forward. She's all for the war aspect. She gets in there, she kills some stuff, and then she gets blown down on the strike back. Okay? Cool. Round 2, you do nothing. Round 3, you do nothing. Round 4, Most of your army's now dead. A lot of their army's dead. Round 4, you're like, I'm gonna roll this now. End of my hero phase. 2 up. Boom. 840 point model. Back on the table, baby. Welcome back. The goddess is back in round 4. That's a late game swing, I would say. Returning an 840 point, quite survivable model back to the table. So that can happen. This is the other time I would unfurl the mission accomplished banner, because we had said she should do this exact thing.
Yeah.
And she does. David, what do you think about Life Bloom and its new incarnation? Does this, like, is Alariel playable for the first time ever?
I think if you liked Alariel, love her. You
Yes.
don't like Alariel and you weren't running her, it's still kind of the same thing. The reason why is this is an amazing rule. I love it. But she's still a 3-up 16. We've lost the stacks. Very easy to remove.
Sure. Yep. That's totally fair. She is not an impossible thing to kill in any way, shape, or form. She has no ward save still. So it's like, it is what it is. Yep, that's totally fair. I love this return rule so much. The other thing that's worth noting quickly here on her, and then Tyler, I'm coming to you on your take on Alariel, is that she has this Rite of Life, which is once per battle at the start of your hero phase, you can say Alariel will give voice to a verse of the Rite of Life. If you do so until the end of that turn, all terrain features on the battlefield that are not already considered by you to be overgrown are now considered by you to be overgrown, which is cool. I mean, that's obviously, like, suddenly everything is now a beacon. It's going to be almost, basically it becomes impossible for your opponent to sort of zone you out of moving around kind of however you want. So, cool. All right.
I think she's an intriguing puzzle to try and figure out competitively, try to make it work at a tournament. She's not certainly not an obvious take. I mean, she's so many points that if you run into a matchup where she's taken off the board early, she's such a big investment, you may not have enough left to compete in rounds 2 and 3 to where you get her back in round 4 that you've got enough left to do much of anything at that point in the game. It's a number of games where it's just, you may be forced to take the risk on a 3-up in round 3, even though you don't want to, and you failed that, potentially game over at that point. Yeah, she does do more damage. Metamorphosis is excellent. The fact that Null Root, right, is 3d6, pick the 2 highest, can be for her. Sweet. Dwindling can be for her. It helps turn her magic on in a way. We've been complaining forever about her lack of bonuses to cast, bonuses to unbind. Sort of fixes that with her. Lady of Vines is going to be very tough to get into a list with her, I think. I don't really see that as all that viable of a power pairing in terms of what you're left with a list. And then you're having to lean into, of course, Null Root for the 3d6 to even get a shot at getting that Lady of Vines spell off in the first place to try to make Alaria more survivable. So anyway, it's just a lot of these little things that I don't think she's going to get there for most players, but she's certainly compelling to try to figure out in terms of tournament play.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I think she is still slightly high on the points. She's maybe one of the scrolls I would say is slightly high. 840 is a lot. That's a lot. And it feels like she could be 800, high 700s, and I would feel like slightly better about it. Then maybe you could fit her in with the Lady of Vines in a more reasonable way. At least that might be something. You're still paying a lot through the nose for that. Like, boy, not a lot of army on the backside of that, but still. At any rate, I think she's actually interesting. She's, it's cool. Like, it's a cool thing. Yeah, I get it why they put her so high, because being able to pop your god model back on the table it's something.
Definitely.
Like, that is really something.
And one, she can have a 6-up ward in burgeoning, which is nice for her.
Yeah, that is true.
So I said, she's only 3-up, she can lift it pretty easily. Obviously, I'm thinking about things like long strikes, double tapping bow snakes, that kind of thing. But if you don't have a good answer for 3-up, 16 wound, strike and fading, monstrosity, going in, killing a unit, teleporting back, healing itself, going in, kill. I mean, she's interesting, and if you can't answer her, she's going to be really hard to deal with.
Yeah.
One thing as well we haven't mentioned is when we get into Spitestorm Hive has a changed effect in your opponent's growth phase that you can that is, off your turn when you're going to be always doing the +3 to move and charge or whatever. Yeah, +3 move and charge. It reduces Rend by 1. So you strike and Fatal Ariel back right within range of Spitesworm Hive. Now it reduces all Rend coming into her, so that takes away the Bow Snake's Rend. That reduces long strikes, etc. That could be quite meaningful in terms of helping her survive the shooting output that might be coming her way in particular. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The Lady of Vines, or Minilarial. Mini-Larial, because that's clearly what she is. 325 points. I would point out both these are also totems now. The Lady of Vines, the War Master, but Ilariel's not, which is kind of a weird thing to me.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, that's, I don't know. But anyways, yes, the Lady of Vines is the War Master. 10 wounds on a 3-up save, so she has the worst number of wounds. But that's okay. She's still good. I still love her. She's a double cast wizard. She's what we reviewed before. I mean, like, this scroll came out with the box. She's great. I really, really, really like her a lot. She's like little mini okay in a fight if she needs to. She doesn't want to be fighting, but she's okay. She can do a little bit of work. She can summon some dryads on a 2-up, which is just useful for deck chair sitting in the background. Like, hey, bloop, hold that thing. Exist. Right? It's just like, cool, great, nice. And obviously, she has an absolutely amazing spell, which is a 5-up ward bubble. So, great. She was good before. She's super good now. She's absolutely worth 325 points. I love her. So,
Good. Any thoughts on her?
Yeah, no, I agree completely. The first thing I ran was Lady of Vines because I was like, well, the Spirit Song's gone. It's not gone. It's seasons now. But I wanted that aura, and I'd been playing without Carnots in AOS older the before this book for a while. So it was very intuitive with what I was already doing. I was able to pretty easily move her around exactly where I needed that aura, and with Gnarlroot, I never missed it once.
Yep.
It was great.
Yep. She's really good. Beautiful model, too, I might add. Like, I mean, I know that's not really what we're discussing, but, like, I really, really like this model. Like, she was so much fun to paint. This is just such a win for me. I wish this is how they would make I wish a lot of armies would get these kinds of heroes. Like, this kind of 250 to 350 point range is such a nice range for heroes. They can give them, like, good abilities that they feel impactful and useful without being, like, super big god centerpiece or crap stupid combat hero that doesn't do anything, right? Like, it's just a nice place for a hero to be. She's very useful in your army. She does stuff. It's great. Like, yeah, she will be in many lists. There you go. I don't know what else to say. I would point out also. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I do like that she's in wounds. Now, I know a number of people are going to run her and she'll get shut off the board, and that'll be that. And maybe they won't run her again. I mean, there's certainly that risk.
Sure.
There are some ways to offset that. Again, drop count is going to be higher in this meta, all else equal, at least as we are at the start of it. Bounty Hunters in particular is going to increase the drop count. So you have some play around that, right? Where you can go very low drop, double battle reg. David and I have been talking about that. Gnarlroot, get your cast up, get the 5-up ward up. I mean, you've got some ways, you've got some play around it to where it's just not automatically she's going to die. It also has a really good impact, I think, healthy impact from a list building standpoint. The fact that Drycha and her are both 10 wounds or more, which means that you're not easily getting your second, your extra enhancement, which has a meaningful, healthy balance from list building standpoint.
100%. Like, this army actually finds things like Warlord and Command Entourage a little bit tricky to truly get into, just because of the nature of the sub commanders versus the commanders in this army. Yeah. Yep. Agreed. I would also point out she's Bravery 10. It's like a small thing, but she's actually really easy to heal herself. A lot of the other heroes aren't Bravery 10, so it's a thing. Drycha. Drycha is Drycha. She acts like Drycha. David, you're the Drycha fan. I mean, she was good before. She's still good. I don't know what else to say.
I think she's much better now.
Okay.
The reason is she used to have 4s in her profile. So you could never get it down to 2s and 2s. And just the turn she goes in, best day ever, all out attack, 20 swings, they're on Tree Song. I just shot you 10 times for some mortal wounds, and now I'm just going to blow you up. And it's good. I mean, basically, Drycha's Drycha. She does what she does. She no longer snipes characters with her range reduction. She eviscerates units instead.
Yep. I agree. 335 points. I think she's worth it. She is a machine. You're absolutely right on the 3s and 3s. It's such a good point. Like, yeah, she's, she is a great, you mentioned it at the top, but it's worth repeating here. She is a great strike and fade plan, right? Like, this is going to be my, like, all else equal, this is my strike and fade unit. And I think when you're building a list, you need to think about, like, what is my, assuming nothing else is happening, what's my strike and fade unit I want to go for, right? And she's a great one to have for that. Yes. Okay.
To me, she's one of the true hot picks in this book. She's going to see a lot of play. The damage output's incredible. She's a great. Taven and I hit upon how fantastic of a power pair she is with Spirit of Durthu, where those two could really hold it down on a particular part of the board. That's not, so you could have Durthu get hit with, again, Battle Mage, Spitestorm Hive. You don't even necessarily need Drycha to go in. She gets the teleport, right? Because Durthu gets a free teleport. So Drycha teleports, she shoots, Durthu goes in, does damage, strikes and fade back to Drycha by the wood. Now you've got those two hanging out together. She can do Unleash Hell, he can do the Stomp, 3+ to make them fight last. You don't want to be fighting last against Durthu and Drycha. There's just a number of, like plays, tricks, combos like that you can execute with those two in particular on a side of the board while you still got enough of your army left to function elsewhere.
Yep.
So yeah, I think she's really amazing.
One other small thing I'll point out, just to talk about the difference between these two, since like this and the Lady of Vines are like similar wounded, similar saving, similar feeling like level heroes, like they both have 10 wounds and 3 up save, so on, is just a very small note. The Lady of Vines is not a monster. She is a totem and a War Master, so like for a million reasons. She has an 18-inch command range, but she is not a monster, so she's still just counting as 2 for capture. Whereas Drycha, obviously, there she is. Whereas Drycha obviously is a monster, but is not a totem. So it does have just like it's just these small things that are worth mentioning. Sometimes 5 can matter. Sometimes now it might matter nothing at all because you might be like, I have 5, and the other opponent's like, cool, I have 180, and it's like, all right, well, whatever.
It's also worth knowing Drycha is a War Master. So if you have Drycha as Lady of Vines,
she is a War
general,
Master. Yes. Thank you.
Triple Jennies. Ooh, hey, it's gonna be exciting.
Triple Jennies. Triple Jennies. Okay. Warsong Revenant. This guy's finally at a points value that I think this guy's at a points value I think I'm comfortable with. It's taken me a little while to get comfortable with this guy. I really hate this guy. Okay. Like, I think this is my most hated hero in Sylvaneth. So, 8-inch move, he flies, he's a wizard, he casts 2 spells, blah, blah, blah. He gets +1 to cast, Dispel, and Unbind when he's near a woods. He's the cast bonus in your army. Congratulations. This is it. You got here. Okay. He has this little bravery manipulation thing still, which like will not often matter. And then obviously he has his spell, which is his Unleash Swarm Spites, casting value of 7 and range of 9 inches. Unless he's a spell singer, then it's a range of just the board near your woods. And if successfully cast, you roll a number of dice equal to the casting roll for each enemy unit within range of the caster. For each 5+, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. Hey, guess what? Turns out you could have a lot of units within 9 inches of a wood. Turns out.
Yep.
Could be many. It's a big old footprint. So yeah, I mean, this dude's great because he is, a built-in double caster already. I already mentioned the list earlier with, giving him the tome and backboarding him and spell singing him. So yeah. David, is there anything I missed more on the Warsong Revenant? I mean, he's good.
Yeah, he's great. A lot of Sylvaneth players were in shock that he lost his access to the entire lore, which is a great change. He was carrying the entire Battletome on his back, and he needed to be that good to do it. The Battletome is good. He can retire. He can stop doing that now. I still take him a lot. I think he's a great character. I don't feel bad taking him anymore, which is a good thing.
Yeah. He is properly pointed with the correct set of abilities for where he is now. I like him. I wish I liked his model slightly better, but I hate the bug rack on his back. So, not that you have to put that on, but whatever. Okay. Arch Revenant. Hey, what's up, homie? What's up, buddy? You're a big dog. I love that. We all love the Arch Revenant. This guy's fun. Again, he flies. 6 wounds, 4 up save. He no longer has this little free bug die thing, but he's got 6 wounds. Instead, now he can set his little defensive stance and in combat gain a 4-up ward during that phase. Or he can adopt an aggressive stance, which he'll never do, and get +1 attack. Like if this guy's in combat, he's going defensive pretty much all the time. Funny story. Charge this guy with 3 sensor bears. Thought for sure I was like, I can kill this 6 wound moron with 3 sensor bears. Did not end that way. Did not in fact go that way. So yeah, I mean the important part to this dude is if you're going with like a Heartwood Kurnoth strategy, you almost automatically are going to bring this guy in. I think he can be quite worth it, even if there's almost maybe no Kurnoth in your army. Like, yes, his Champion of the Kurnoth has no function then, but he still has a +1 to attack command ability, which is really good. And he's still a cheap sub-commander who's useful. Like, he's quite mobile. He can ward in combat. Like, yeah.
Sub-commander. Cheap for Sylvaneth.
Yes.
Yeah, because he's still 120 points.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, he's good. It's a good take. Yeah. The Battle Mage, Branch Witch, Arch Revenant will be the 3 in particular that you're looking to take.
Wait, hold on. I apologize, everyone, if I was misgendering the Arch Rev. Is this a girl? Is the Arch Revenant a girl?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Actually, it is. I believe so.
Oh, I'm so sorry, everybody. That's just me not being familiar enough with the sculpt. I don't own an Arch Rev for my Sylvaneth army. I am very sorry. That is completely on my bad. I did not own the model and did not realize that it was a female model. So, yes. Please continue, Tyler.
Yeah, just that, again, getting into if you want an extra enhancement, if you have, let's say, I mean, you've got a number of directions you can go in, but essentially, I think for a lot of lists, you're looking at 4 options. Pick 2, right, for your 2 sub-commanders to get Warlord or Command Entourage, Warsong, Battle Mage, Rev, or Branch Witch. I'd be curious, I mean, that'd be another conversation, David. If you've looked at other ally options, I can't get past the Battle Mage as my first choice, right, to try to fill out a Command Entourage or a Warlord. But yeah, no, it's fantastic. I do still worry about this whole 580 point combo, right? Was 1x6 bows. You hit him with all out attack. Cool. 3s and 2s with the Arch Revenant nearby. What happens if that Arch Revenant dies? Okay, now you're at 3s and 3s on that 460 point investment. And I just feel like you're going to be back in 2.0 land where bows are going to feel terrible, particularly going against Lookout Star. Now they're 4s and 3s.
We can talk about that more in list building. I played that list. There's definitely play after the Arch Revenant dies because it forces the opponent to commit, and you can counterplay that. Unless, of course, they're a gun line. That's different.
He also can hide, of course, in woods. You know, he's got the right wound profile, so he can.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's probably mainly AoE damage, or like a Bastillodon double tapping to try to get him off the board because they've got 10 wounds or more. But yeah, all is equal. He should be pretty survivable. But great model, Warscroll.
Somebody asked why I don't have one of these, because it came out in the time when I had no interest in playing my Sylvaneth, because it was a bad army that was unfun to play, and you had to have like a million woods, which I do not own. So there you go. Okay. Spirited Earthu, what's up, big boy? Here's my dog. The important part to discuss here is he's no longer D3 attacks when he's near 370 points. He's no longer D3 attacks when he's near woods or overgrown. Now it's +1, so he goes from 3 attacks with his big sword to 4, which is enough. That's enough. It's fine. It's fine for a 6 damage neg-2 Ren sword, potentially neg-3 with Tree Song, which yes, please. It's fine. The key is to get this guy to 2s and 2s. That's what you're going for. That's what you want. That's the dream. This is the dream. Okay. And it's pretty easy to do. We'll talk here about Ground Shaker quickly. This is the Slanesh stolen ability. I don't know how y'all got away with this. This was too toxic of an effect for our army to have, but apparently you can just put it on every one of your moron tree people. Just every one of these idiots gets this thing. They have a new Monstrous Rampage. Obviously only one guy can do it. Only one of the people can do it because it is a Monstrous Rampage. But on a 3-up, they pick an enemy unit, just like a normal Monstrous Rampage, within 3 inches, and Stompy Stomp, and on a 3-up, the Strike Last effect applies to them. Obviously, the potent combo here is when you happen to, as you mentioned, you got like 2 monsters in combat with them, and you're combining like Roar and Strike Last. It's just like, well,
Right. Yep.
if both of those go off, you dead.
Yep.
You
It's
dead.
yeah. Go ahead, David.
See, I've gotten so lucky on Ground Shaker. I haven't missed it once. It's just
Well, and
every single
playing
time,
against
like,
it, you have to assume that you're going to get it the Sylvaneth player is going to get it every time, right? Just that threat is
Sure.
so powerful.
Yeah, it makes them very hard to charge. Yes, I am aware, Jen, that the regular Tree Lords had it on a 4-up, but the difference between the old bad Tree Lord having it on a 4-up when nobody ran many Tree Lords, let alone one, okay, and all of the good trees having it now, and yes, it's only 1 unit, but it's on a 3-up. I'm just saying, a 3-up Fight Last on Migrator Demons made everybody lose their freaking mind for an entire season of Warhammer. So, and I'm not bitter. I'm not a bitter root. I'm fine. Okay. No, I mean, it's super good. And yes, what it means is that, like, I watched Haywo play a game on TTS against an Oakenbrow army, and he was running, like, all Gluttons. Just, huge packs of Gluttons. Okay? And he charged it, and so it was Oakenbrow, a bunch of Tree Lords and stuff, right? He charged in with, like, 12 Gluttons, tags 2 or 3 Tree Lords or whatever. Like, maybe a Durthu and a Tree Lord, or I don't remember. Some number of big trees, right? And immediately, boom, gets stomped, and then all of them just wail on him, and he's down to like 1 ogre out of that 12 pack. Like they just cleaved their way through all but 1 ogre. 1 ogre remained at the end of the fight. And I was like,
Oh God, yeah, because he probably had him in bounty hunters as well.
yeah, the regular
the
Tree
Tree
Lords
Lords?
were. Yeah, the
Tree Lords,
were,
yeah, and I'm guessing the Gluttons are battle lines. So yeah,
Yes,
wild.
they are. Yeah, they're battle line in 4 wounds there. That's that magical combination, baby. So yeah, it was just like black. Just ogre guts against the wall. Anyways, yeah, Spirited Uther is cool. I mean, I can't see a list where you run multiple of him, but certainly I can see many lists where you have 1.
Yeah, he'll be pretty common choice. Yeah.
And significant change in addition to the not D3 but just +1. It's also 9 inches up from 8, which is exponentially blah blah blah.
Yep. Right on.
What are we talking about?
The
Wrathful
bonus.
Guardian procs on 9 instead of 8, which is so.
All right,
it's just a
what
bigger,
procs on?
The
the
+1
Wrathful
attack.
Guardian ability.
Oh, +1 attack. Sure. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah, they
And
smoothed out his Verdant Blast. Yeah, like the 4 attacks are fine because everything has been smoothed out, right? Verdant Blast
Yeah.
has been smoothed out. The Talons have been improved. The Talons are 3
Oh, yeah.
damage.
Those Talons are
2s.
big now. Like, they're a big deal to all these guys' attack profiles. You'll be like, okay, I did okay. Oh, wait, the Talons. You just gut somebody with those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're for real. That's not just
there.
a cute modeling choice anymore. I mean, 2s and 2s ain't bad on neg 2 Ren 3 damage. That's not a bad attack profile. I'll take it, even with 2 attacks. That ain't too shabby. And yeah, I should say all of the Tree Lords basically have the massive Impaling Talons now. The 2 attacks on 2s, neg 2 3 damage.
Yeah,
They all have
Groundseeker is
different. Go ahead, David.
Say, yeah, guys. To me, it's easily top 5 most impactful elements of this book. Probably a top 3. Groundshaker is so significant in terms of how this army will function, list building, and again, just if you're going against it, you have to assume it's going to get hit every time, which impacts your gameplay.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yes, he does
I
have
was
the
just gonna
new
say-
wounds chart that all the monsters have, so he's already more resistant to dropping a 6 damage just because he moved to the 3.0 wound chart. But also, again, in Oakenbrow, he'll never drop his 6 damage, which is awesome. So, I'm sorry, David, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. Seconds of lag make for interruptions. Am I right? No, I was just gonna say he's a pretty good target with that Impaling Talon for an Arch Revenant +1 attack. If you have say run him in Heartwood, so he's +1 to hit already. That Fell Bowers, he's +1 to wound already. Now he's got 5 swings and 3 swings. It could be pretty nice.
Oof.
Bad, not bad.
Ugh, my heart. Okay. All right, good stuff. Tree Lord Ancient. He's a Tree Lord Ancient. He can also stomp. He's still a single cast wizard. The key with him, as I mentioned, like the big deal with him, he's 360 points. The big deal with him is that once per battle in your hero phase, if this unit's on the battlefield, you can set up one Awakened Wildwood terrain feature consisting of one scenery piece, so a small wood, more than 3 inches from blah, blah, blah. Right. Which is amazing, because there's no range to that. That's the point. He can throw it back corner, behind their army, in front of them, to the side, left, this over here, grab that objective, this thing, whatever you need to do. It's just an incredibly useful thing. He is much more expensive now. David, what's your take on the Tree Lord Ancient? I think he's still completely worth the 360 points, and you'll see him in lists. But what's your read?
Absolutely. He's absolutely worth... it's one of those things you were talking about in your balance thing. You have good rules, and sometimes good rules are just good at any points. I mean, obviously not at 1,000 points, but within reason. Sure. His Summon Trees is a good at any points ability. It's a question I mentioned before. How am I going to play with my trees? How am I going to set them up? How am I going to move? He is the most straightforward, simple, easy to play answer to that. Doesn't really have a lot of counterplay. Afraid you're going to alpha it off, just drop it in the beginning of the game. He dies later. Doesn't matter. He did what he needed to do.
Yep.
Basically, the point when I play him, I did this a lot in the previous book. After he does what I need him to do, I'll just use him as a zoning piece. Right. Yeah, you want to kill Durthu? He's in the way.
Yep. Yeah, he's still a tough piece to remove if they're not spraying him with mortal wounds. Because again, he's still a 14 wound dude on a 3-up save. Like he's still relatively tough. Yes, he is still a single caster, Brent, and again, that's fine. Not everybody needs to be a freaking double caster. I'd love it honestly if there were less double casters in the game, but here we are. He's fine as a single caster, as a big tough monster. I disagree with Rob's take on this completely. By the way, Arcane Tome exists. If you want to be a double caster that bad, just give him a book. Okay.
Rob on this one.
We really need him to overlap with the War Song. I mean, if you were a double caster, he would just be a worse version of that. Like a War Song.
David, what are you doing to me right now? We talked about this, man. You're switching sides. This is not acceptable.
Different roles, okay?
I'm switching sides?
We're totally switching sides. We talked about how horrific it is. It's an affront to all tree players that this Warscroll is still a one cast, one unbind wizard.
This is wrong.
I guess so. The question is just think at 360, it just feels fair with that ability, you know? Like, would I like it if you were a double caster? Okay, sure. But then, like, I'll be honest, if you were a double caster, I would literally never take the Warsong Revenant. I just wouldn't do it.
Oh, that hurts me. It hurts me.
Yeah, sorry,
he's very attractive at 360, which is surprising to say, right? Like, I would not necessarily expect to say that on the first pass of this book. I think it's going to be a common view that a lot of people are going to hate this guy's point value, think he's way overcosted, he's crap. Just look at, as we just talked about it, Awaken Wildwood and look at Ground Shaker. You said zoning, screening, the utility you can get, placing Ground Shaker where you need to next to other units, combined with Wildwood alone, that's extraordinary value with a piece that's going to be hot. You hold that thing up your sleeve, your Wildwood. You don't have to drop. You just have to drop it in round 1 always. Now you can round 2, round 3. It's a threat to your opponent because he's going to be pretty hard to tick off the board for a lot of things. And you're going to have a lot of other priorities that they're not necessarily going to want to shoot at an ancient that's probably not doing a whole lot of combat anyway.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I really love this guy with the Lady of Vines, especially if you're in a position where you can get the 5-up ward and then the two of them are just best friends, because then he is quite hard to remove. If he's running around in the 5-up ward bubble, it's like, okay, well, this dude's going to stick. So, basic Tree Lord, battle line obviously in Oakenbrow, still 14 wounds, still a 3-up save. His big sweeping blows now are 5 attacks, 3s, neg 1, 2 damage, and then he's got them talons, he's got them claws. Still on the 2s, 3 damage. So many 2s. All the 2s. He's got all the 2s. He has Ground Shaker, and then as mentioned, Lash and Tangle. If an attack made with a melee weapon by this unit, so out of the 7 attacks based on your profile, just hits, models in the target unit cannot make pile-in moves until the end of that turn. Woo! We made the Tree Lord interesting, folks. We made the Tree Lord interesting. We did it. We got there. 3rd mission accomplished. It's done. This book is a success on all fronts because of these 3 things.
Yep.
Yeah, I love the Tree Lord. He's great. Yeah.
It's still gonna be hard to find a place for him in your combined arms list.
Yeah.
Obviously, Oakenbrow, Winterleaf will find a home. But yeah, still tough with combined arms, I think.
Well,
Agreed.
and I think that's less the War Scroll. And I wasn't sure on it at first. I was like, that's a really powerful ability, but at 260 points, how good that's going to be. And then people started winning with the Entmoot list, and I was like, okay, that's good. But at 260, I tried building Entmoot lists which weren't running Oakenbrow. Didn't do it. I always ended up being about
Right.
50 points over.
Yep.
So that may be an intentional balance decision to make it so that that's locked into that faction. But if you dropped the points down to about even 250 from 260, you'd start opening up some weird corner cases where you could take these guys in lists. Like if they were 250, it'd be a real question: 1 Tree Lord or 3 Carnouth Hunters?
Yeah.
And in a lot of things, it's going to be the 1 Tree Lord.
Yeah. That'd be
Okay.
cool.
Let's keep moving. Branch Witch. She's the Branch Witch. Again, she's 130 points. She's another one of your little sub heroes. David, you want to talk about the Branch Witch? Is she making her way into any lists for you?
I haven't built any lists with her yet, but I see what people would do it. They moved her Unleash Spites from a 6 to a 5, which is absolutely huge. It means she's got a little mini vortex. I was reflecting. I said I would never take the Warsong Revenant if the Trillion Ancient were a double caster. That's because I don't tend to play the vortex. It's just sit back and gunline you. It's not my style. Not that that's really gunlining, but it's not my style. But if you were like building a list, you're trying to take Warlord, you need a caster. I have had really great luck with the Warsong Revenant, hiding him exactly far enough behind, so after you're done taking my front line, you get vortexed and everything gets pinged.
Sure.
She's a great pick for that. She's cheaper, and she gets you an artifact, so I think she'll be in lists.
Let me ask you a question. You ready? This or the Gur Battle Mage?
Depends.
Okay.
I'm usually running this.
Okay.
And the reason being is I'm usually going to be running either a very reliable Spite Swarm Hive, or I'm going to be running Warsinger.
Okay.
And I don't need the Gur Mage as much with that.
It's fair. It's a completely fair answer. Okay. Cool. Tyler, any Branch Witch defense you want to throw on here?
I really like what they've done with her. They made her spell the equivalent of, it works exactly like Unleash Swarm of Spites.
Yep.
That's a nice tool that you can get at it's a discount Warsong Revenant. David just mentioned the anti-Alpha Strike defense you can get from her, particularly if you're in Null Route, where you can get a big cast on that. Iron Jaws come rolling in, turn 1 or whatever. You've got that as something you can do in response. I think she's going to make her way into some list, which is amazing to say because she was non-existent for mostly since 2016. She rarely made it into, especially with the second book, she never made it into the list. So yeah.
Okay.
And like I said, you can, if you really want to go ham with the Vortex, you can do triple Vortex with Warsong and her.
All right. Let's talk Gossamet Archers, shall we? Let's talk about our new little sneaky fairy archers here. We got the little fairy archers. Okay. We reviewed these guys scroll before when they came out in the box, so that's not like it's a new thing. But they're 12-inch move, 2 wounds, 5 up save. They make 2 shots each out of their bow, with the champion. So you got 11 shots coming out of the unit. Every 6 to hit at a 12-inch range. Not a super long range, but they have a good fly. They have to get themselves danger close to shoot. Obviously, that's the balance. Every 6 to hits, D3 mortal wounds. So on average, you pull about 2d3 mortal wounds from them. Let's just call it that for simplicity of math. And importantly, if this unit received Unleash Hell, and after all of its shooting attacks have been resolved, on a 2-up, they can just retreat. They can fly away. So here is my argument on these guys. Tell me if this checks out to either of you. They have no battle line option. This is an expensive book. I do not think you'll see a huge number of these in a lot of armies. I think some army builds will find a way to fit one unit in, and I don't think you ever run more than 1 unit. To me, 5 is the perfectly fine number. I've seen some people talking about should we stack to 10. No, pass. Hard pass on that. They're still too fragile. Because, they things can happen that get around Unleash Hell pretty easy. Okay? Yeah. Like, there are many ways to not be able to receive that command. You could roll the 1, blah, blah, blah. And if something of any weight gets into them, they just evaporate. Okay? But a unit of 5 may be paired with, like, 3 Kurnoth for your long range, targeting lower armor stuff. And these guys targeting nuts you need to crack because they can punch through with some mortal wounds. And then they can spike hard. Right? Like, it's worth just rolling 11 dice at something that's hard, that's a hard nut to crack, because you might roll 3 or 4 6s and just be like, smack a doodle. Right? There you go. You're dead now. You're dead now. Die. So I think at most you'll see a unit of these. I think they'll be hard to fit in, but I think you will see some lists that use 1 unit, especially as a complement to Kurnoth archers. Thoughts, gentlemen?
Why don't you start?
Do you want to go first?
Okay, I'll go first. Yeah. They fit the principle we discussed near the top of the show. You don't want shooting to be too good. They are not going to see that much play competitively, in my opinion. I'm not even sure you're going to see that many lists slot in a unit of 5. But in terms of, I was talking with Vince, David, about the spectrum, right? So let's say on the left, you're picking unit of 3 bows or 5 gossamer archers. In the middle, you're picking 6 bows or 10 gossamer archers. And on the right, you're really leaning in. Or sorry, in the middle, you're taking both. Let's say you're taking gossamer archers and 3 bows, or you're taking 6 bows. And on the right, you're going ham with like 9 bows. So which of those 3 are the most likely that we're going to see competitively?
Competitively, I think taking more, maybe 2 times 5, maybe. I think more than 5 is a trap. But the reason is, and it's the way. So I talked about you have to plan your strike and fade. Yeah. These things are cool because they don't put pressure on that.
Right.
They move in there fast. They go where they want. You have Warsinger maybe, so they move faster. They light something up. Maybe you strike and fade. My favorite Drika, teleport her behind them. If they want to get to, so there's play, but you take them in a big unit. There's so many things in the game which will just sneeze at them and they'll die.
Right.
And B, they're bravery 6.
Yep.
They're barely more brave than goblins. So, and everything in our units are all bravery. 6 to 7. I think the highest was maybe 8. So you have to be really careful at Battle Shock if you're taking big units. So I think that people are going to try it. They're going to say, yay, long strikes. And then it's going to be really bad because it's really fragile. And I think that when you're in those points where, like, I have 300 points left, what am I going to do? Gossamed's in a triumph, way to go. If you're already running the Heartwood gun line, great. If you're doing something else, also great. They're a good unit, but I wouldn't build around them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with all that. I told you I don't like the idea of playing the slot machine game with them at 220 points with 11 dice. I could see Vince's point. I just, again, it's take
you
the
need to
known
get more.
quantities.
Look, you're stealing Skaven mechanics. You got to get that Skaven mentality. Because I paid 225 for 8 shots that did have the exact same rule, and let me tell you what. Worth it every time. I'm in for those boys. Like Slink's little skitter pack or whatever, boy. I'm in for those. Now, given they do it in melee as well. But they're just as fragile. It's a bunch of 2-wound dum-dums on a 5-up save running around. And those guys are worth their points every time. So it's not exact equivalent, obviously. But
I would legit consider 2 times 5, 1 times Drika. That could be quite good. But I wouldn't ever do more than that.
Yeah. Just to really push into some mortal wound shooting and see what you could do. Yeah. Yeah. And my problem is, Diego, if they were 180 points, I think you would see people try to really push them. And we don't need more mortal wound shooting in the game. That's just not what we need.
The design of the Warscroll that we got, maybe we shouldn't have got it, necessitates a high point value, and 180 is too cheap.
Yeah.
I think it's a great Warscroll. I love it. I'm glad it is everything it is.
They're an interesting addition that could be a spice into a couple different lists. That's how I see them. They're not a build around unit. This will go into my plan in some way unit. Like started over here, they fit. That's the way they work. I don't want to flip that around the other way. Okay.
So I was just the last one on this, Vince, and I mentioned to you,
Yeah.
I was thinking, I haven't looked at this on the table. I don't know if you have yet, David. I mentioned to you a few days ago. So I was thinking about like what's some play around this. You mentioned there are a number of ways you can play around it, but one is, looking at what degree. So for them to get away after Unleash Hell, they must still be within 3 inches of an enemy unit to then roll the dice on a 2-up to get away, right? So if you have a way that you could pull models that they kill.
Like you charge in as a single file, they unleash on you. You like some elite unit, you pull the first guy, and now you don't have anybody else within 3 or whatever. Then they can't float away anymore. But you still have your 3-inch pile-in to go get them, right? Because you charged. Yeah.
I haven't looked at the footprint on how common that situation might come up. 32 mils like a triangle, and then everything else behind, etc. But yeah, sorry, David.
No. I was just King Ironjaw's hero face charging. Would be
Yeah,
a
sure.
thing.
That's exactly it, right? There's
Yeah.
so much out of phase kind of charging or ways around Unleash. You can't bet on that as your thing. There's sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. And when it doesn't, bye goes unit.
Their use is not blocking with Unleash Hell. Their use is being easy to slot in.
Right. Let's talk about the Bug Riders. Spite Rider Lancers at 210. Revenant Seekers at 235. Both 5 wounds with a 4-up save, 7 bravery. Long moves, 12 and 14 inches. 14 inches and 12 inches, respectively. Both of them have a 6-inch pile-in, but not the good cheater 6-inch pile-in, the correct 6-inch pile-in, the way it's supposed to work. If we can just jettison the cheater 6-inch pile-in from the game, that would be great. Please stop printing that, thank you. And then they both have musicians that let them rally on a 5-up. I just think it's a toxic, stupid rule. Like that 6-inch cheater pile-in shouldn't exist. This is the correct way to
My
do
friend
it.
Travis Boyson is a terrible person. I know that. He's been running Vanguard forever. Yeah, he's a bad person. I hear you.
I just don't buy the. Yeah, whatever. We're not gonna get into it. Okay, they have the good version, and they rally on a 5-up. Cool beans. Now,
Mention their heal.
yeah, we'll get there. So the shared ability that they both have is Thrumming with Life. So at the end of each phase, if any enemy models were slain by an attack made by this unit, they heal all wounds allocated to them. They don't restore models. They just heal any floating wounds, which they will often likely have at 5 points, of course, or 5 wounds, of course. Now, the difference in their 2 abilities is the Lancers have slightly more attacks, but are all 1 damage attacks. Like, whatever. You can see their profiles on the screen. I don't need to read them out to you. But the Spite Riders have 7 attacks base, 3s and 3s, -2, 1 damage, and so on and so forth. They both have the same bug, whereas the Revenants do 2 damage. Descent to the Spite Riders, they have Strike First, which is obviously very potent. Like, Strike First on the charge is so potent because it jumps the line. So if you are going for like a launch pad, alpha strike, hit 'em and quit 'em strategy, if you bring in 6 of these guys through like Harvest Boon or something, right, where they're just in, and then you catapult forward, some Kurnoth Scythe. This is what I played against on Monday. The key is they activate, the Lancers activate because they have Strike First. Then you make your first choice of what fights, let's say the 6 Scythes. Right, so you're effectively getting your little Lumineth, like a Lumineth type activation for your first activation there. Very potent. The Revenant Seeker is more expensive at 235, but their ability is also quite good. Once per turn at the end of your movement phase, so you can reposition yourself first. You pick 1 friendly Sylvaneth unit, any Sylvaneth unit with a wounds characteristic of 5 or less, Kurnoth or themselves, or other Lancers, like all are qualifying for this. And roll a die on a 2+, you get to return a slain model to that unit. Again, we mentioned earlier the ability to just sort of build Kurnoth units back up through things like the Verdant spell, combined with like a unit of these guys floating around. You can take your Kurnoth can be dropping back in, potentially 2 models on your turn. That is not nothing at all. Yep. So yeah, these guys are both cool. They're both battle line in Harvest Moon. Yep. So. David, what do you think about the new Bug Boys? Bug Boys and Girls.
I particularly like the Spite Lance Riders. I think I'm gonna double check, make sure I remember. Yeah, they're 3s and 3s for hit and wound, compared
that's
to the
right.
Revenant Seekers are
Yep.
4s and
4s
3s.
and 3s. Big difference.
So in a,
Well, all their bugs are 4s and 3s. Both bugs are the same. But yes, the main person on top is 3s and 3s. Yes.
exactly. So between the two of them, we're talking about a large Alpha Striker unit. A lot of times I'm favoring the Lancers for that because I can get them to that 2 and 2, which is a lot tighter. And for the Seekers, it used to be I would ask myself, okay, who's going to cast Verdure's Harmony? I need to bring back a Kurnoth Hunter. How do I make it so I can get it off through all of the anti-magic? And it was a very hard question to answer, which forced me to make stupid choices sometimes. Now you can just take Seekers. They're more expensive than a caster. They're 15 wounds. They have the outcome of I get the guy back, which what is using the caster for. You can't dispel it. They can move before they do it. And they're still really fighty.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's absolutely winning on that front to me.
Yeah. Agreed.
Play.
Yeah, like the Spite Rider Lancers, one of the trick is if you do, and this is something Jen is pointing at in the comments, if you do reinforce them, you're talking about 6 models, so they have bad coherency, but they have a 2-inch reach with both of their attacks, so you actually can get all of your attacks in with like a weird sort of this kind of a setup. Like you have to organize it just right, like you do with the old 32 mil 1-inch reach trick. It's possible, but you have to be able to line up exactly like that. Right, to fight the unit.
Footprints and
frontage of the enemy and so on and so forth. Yeah. So it can be a challenge to actually get all 6 of them fighting since they're on the big weird round 60 mil bases. I like Spite Riders. I like them. So here's my read on it. I don't ever see a reason to reinforce Revenants, and probably I just have one unit floating around, and it's mostly heal/cleanup of small units. Like they can get in there and do some work against smaller chaff units and things that are trying to objective sit and stuff like that. They're just kind of roaming threat that can also be healing things back into existence.
Like bounty hunters. Yeah, to clean up veterans or whatever. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Now, can Spite Riders become eels? That's the nearest comparison I can think of. Let's just go with it. Like, we know these dudes can get a super big 12-inch pre-game move. Then they got a 14-inch move after that. They're going 26 inches, tearing across the board. Can I take these dudes into the enemy and blow people up with, like, let's say 6 of them, yada yada? Is that possible? Do you think that's a build? David, what's your read?
They're not eels.
Yeah.
And trying to make them eels is a mistake. They, in our list, work really great working with, say, Durthu goes in, he's ethereal, he can stay. They go in, and then maybe a third unit goes, doesn't matter. The person could be striking last, they could not be striking last. They strike first, they fade, leave behind the big tree. There's a synergy play there happening with who you're leaving behind and who you're striking and fading. And then from there, they have that self-recursion. I rally on a 4-up, heal myself if I do damage. So if you want to play eels...
Probably on a 5-up, but yeah.
Yeah. If you want to play eels, play eels. They're great, but you're going to play Ideneth. You're going to be playing Spite Riders. I think that there's some nuances to that where it's just a little bit different. I think that's important to focus on exploiting that.
Completely agreed. Yeah, and the trick is, even if you put these guys in bounty hunters, because that's the immediate thought, right? It's like, well, you put them in bounty hunters, and suddenly all those attacks, because the unit itself, even a unit of 3, makes 22 attacks with the champ. Like, all those become 2 damage, and it's like, yeah, sure, unless there's no Galatian veterans to attack, right? Which is exactly what my opponent ran into, where there was just no Galatian veterans to attack. They came in, didn't do the work, and then got, just murderized. That's the problem. You're exactly right. They're not eels, right? So, and that was the problem. You had too many units that needed to access strike and fade. They had to stay because the other unit needed to go. And that was it. So,
just add a few thoughts what David said. Yeah, where you set up the triple combo, they strike first. You ground shaker with a Durthu, then you have a strike and fade piece. So that could be one of many things. That could be 3 swords, 3 Kurnoth swords. It could be Drycha, whatever. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to have the third piece. You could get away with 2, but they would be getting out of with Durthu, Gnarled Warrior. I think he would hang around. The Lancers would strike and fade out because they don't have to go back to the launch pad. right? They could go to a different wood somewhere else, and they've got the built-in mobility to be really functional. But another big benefit is that they open up the potential to surprise your opponent and have a bigger threat footprint than they would expect, right? They blow up the Lancers, 6 of them in particular. They blow up the screen. Now you've got Durthu with a 3-inch plus a 3-inch reach. I guess the sword is still 3-inch. I have to look at it, but I'm sure it is.
It is.
And
Yep.
yeah, so that could really surprise some folks in terms of what you could get in from that point after you kill the screen with the Lancers, who are probably going to in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think they open up a ton of play. They're not our best hammer. You can use them sort of as a limited hammer, or a sort of a limited engagement and hammer. But I mean, Kurnoth in particular, I think 6 Kurnoth size and Durthu are still the primary hammers that we've got in this book.
Yeah, I quite like these guys. And I think, again, you're going to see some groups of these bug riders in a lot of lists. I think they're very good, but they're part of a different strategy. They're not a blind hammer you just slam down and go, got him.
Right.
That's not what they are. They're part of a bigger strategy. All right, you mentioned Kurnoth. Let's get into it. All right. Kurnoth Hunters clocking in at 230, cheaper with the bows. Still a 30-inch range, 2 attacks, 4s, 3s, neg 1, 2 damage. The important part about all Kurnoth is they're envoys of the Everqueen. And the way that works now, since this did change since the box set, this ability just changes all the time. While this unit is contesting an objective, friendly Sylvaneth units wholly within 6 inches of that objective are treated as being wholly within 6 inches of an overgrown terrain feature. Super cool. So if they walk up and contest, not control, contest, everybody else wholly within 6 inches of that objective basically gets to treat it as overgrown. So that's cool, not only for them, because then they can get the appropriate bonuses and like automatically leave or stuff like that if they need to, or do other things they need to do, but they can also pass out bonuses to other people who happen to be near them if there's things triggering off that. Cool stuff. All the Kurnoth have it. Let's go through it here real quick. I'm just going to hit all 3 Kurnoth and then we're going to talk about them. The Hunters with the great swords, which is a good choice, by the way. Like, they actually... So here's the trick. All else being equal, Hunters with great swords now do more damage than scythes. That sounds impossible. Okay? But it is mathematically true. And it's because their Sundering Strikes, if the unmodified hit roll made for an attack with a greatsword is 6, they suffer 2 mortal wounds, and the attack sequence ends. Now, when we go over here to the Scythes, who now have a neg 3 rend, yikes, on bikes. Again, I'm assuming all are attacking. Like, this is 3 to 3 to 3 comparison. Obviously, with Kurnoth, the advantage is that the Scythe boys can go in a 6-pack and fight over the top of each other. That's a huge difference, whereas the Sword boys can't. But straight 3 to 3, the Sword boys actually do 1 more damage on average. Okay? However, then they got this weird new rule. All right? That is, if any models in an enemy unit finish a pile-in move within 3 inches of any friendly units with this ability, that enemy suffers 1 mortal wound after all models in the unit have finished their pile-in moves. Let me tell you why this... That tells me this book got real development. Okay? Like, this actually tells me this book got real mathematical development. Attention paid. Because Tyler and I, when this book came out, we were going through the numbers and we ran the damage calc of 3 against 3, and I was like, oh no, the swords actually do 1 more... Almost exactly 1 damage point more on average, right? Against like a 4-up save. And then I was like, I looked back at the scrolls and I was like, oh, wait a minute. These Scythe boys have this weird extra rule that does 1 mortal wound for seemingly no reason.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's that extra point of damage. They ran the numbers and figured out that there is this 1 damage point delta between the two and used this little extra rule to make it so they do the same damage. So it's like, to me, that suddenly makes it like, what do you think is in the meta? Do you need the rend? Do you need the mortal wounds? Do you running in a 6-pack versus 3-packs? Those become your relevant decisions because you're not making a decision around just damage versus not as good damage anymore. Okay, So that's all the Kurnoth boys. David, what's your read on the Kurnoth boys here?
Oh, they're great. They're still Kurnoths. If you liked Kurnoths, which you probably did, you'll like Kurnoths. I'm trying to lean away from them a little bit because I ran so many Kurnoth lists in the old book. But I think the Envoys, the Evergreen ability is amazing. Because, like I said, the seasons replace Heed the Spirit Song. These guys used to give out Heed the Spirit Song. So it's doing the exact same thing from that perspective, which makes my nerd heart happy. I like Scythes because I like Rend 4.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I get it. And the hunters with the swords are still a bit of a slot machine. They can spike super hard and just like, hey, I know you're doing all the save stacking. Who cares? Mortal wounds. Eat it. Just eat it and die.
You can make Sylvaneth do a lot of mortals now with the Gossamids, the Vortexing, the Draca. These guys, like, it can be a thing.
Yeah, it is absolutely a potential path to victory. Yeah. Tyler, what's your take on the Kurnoth teams, the Kurnoth triplets?
Yeah, we've already talked a lot about the bows and how, they're going to feel overpointed in a number of your games. That's for a reason, all else equal. They cannot be much cheaper. Also with bows, you have to think about them. David made this point to me the other day. You have to think about them beyond just their ranged output, right? Bows can go into bounty hunters, which is meaningful now that there are 3 attacks each. 3s and 3s, I believe, 1 damage. That goes to 2 damage. So again, that pack of 6 is putting out a lot of potential output against a 5-up or a 6-up that's coming into them. It's going to be situational. They can be a nice green piece in terms of striking and fading back behind them, particularly a unit of 6, right? You got Durthu, strikes and fade back behind 6 bows, near spikes from high for Battle Mage. If you want to come into Durthu, you're going to get hit with 6 bows or whatever. I think they've got some other uses that are a little more than meets the eye, but I get it. I'm not necessarily convinced that 6 bows and an Arch Revenant is a sufficiently good investment across the meta. Swords and sides are perfect. Like they nailed it. You're going to see more 1x6 sides than you do 2x3 swords, but 1x3 swords will make an appearance, I think, in some list.
Yeah.
As usual, right? That
I should also state, by the way, we didn't mention it, but these guys all have a 3-up save now, which is incredible. Such a good, these guys, that's a big change for the regular unit. So, yes, makes them a lot tougher.
It's also worth stating for anyone who maybe didn't play Sylvaneth before, they do have the roll a dice for each model in the Kurnoth unit on a 4-up immortal. Very great. And it does mean that in melee, Kurnoth bows hit a little harder than you'd expect a gunline unit to hit.
Right.
Don't know what I'd take them for that purpose, but it does mean they don't care if they get engaged by fast cavalry. They will just kill it.
Yeah, I mean, they are still 5 wound, 3-up save shooters, right? I mean, that can stomp mortal wounds out. These are not easy to lift archers. It's not that world. Yeah. They are fairly resistant to that. Yes, I agree. Okay, is this the worst scroll in the book? No, obviously that's the Underworld's Warband. Is this the second worst war scroll in the book? I don't know, maybe. Dryads. 1 wound, 7-inch move, 5-up save, 2 attacks, 4s. The important part now is their little blessings to the forest. They subtract 1 from hit and wound rolls for attacks that target this unit while it's wholly within 9 of any overgrown or awakened wildwoods. Cool, that probably still won't save them. I mean, it's a good penalty. Neg 1 to hit and wound is a good penalty. Don't get me wrong, but these guys just, I mean, they're still going to be turned into tinder, by almost anything that hits them. So,
if bounty hunters didn't exist, they would be perfectly fine.
Yep. But as long as bounty hunters exist, these guys are not a winner. Base 5-up save, it's just not enough.
Shay.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I could see some folks trying thematic Lady of Vines. She summoned. You have your 20 or 30 center focal point of your army. She summons a tenor as a screen in front of that, and you're kind of leaning into some old school 2017, 2018 Sylvaneth play style. But yeah, I doubt it's going to get there.
I just think it's a super loser in the current meta. I really do.
Yeah. You can try to lean into it
with the double damage.
Right.
I guess, yes, that's a good
Sorry.
point, Jen. If you ended up at exactly 1,900 points and you were like, crap, I need one more unit. It's like, I've got everything else I need. Can't fit more tree revs in. All right, 10 dryads, fine. There you go. You made your way in.
Wing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just Aether Wings, yes.
They're better.
Well, I
And you
think-
get a Triumph.
Yeah, I think that might be the best case for them as a baseline reason to include a tenor, is they give you more screening footprint for protection against alpha strikes, and they help you keep your tree reps safe, as opposed to using your tree reps as screens.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, they still can't spread out super far because of the coherency rule, but yes.
You put triangles on the ends. Yeah,
I
mean,
understand. I understand. I get it.
Sorry. Yeah. It's yeah.
Will say, if it weren't for bounty hunters at the -1/-1, they'll never survive. But they can be hilariously obnoxious for other battle line to remove. If someone's on a 4/4 base and they're going to a 5/5 base,
Yeah.
horrible for them.
Yes. Agreed. Okay. The MVP of the book, is this the best war scroll in the book? Yes. The answer is yes. We don't need to have any other discussions. It's yes. Tree Revenants, they're amazing. They are the best galley vets around. 2 wounds now, 5 up save. Fantastic. They don't do anything in melee. I don't care what that stat profile says. That stat profile could be zeros. I would still pay 110 points for them and take them every game. Their attack profile could be Ipsum Lorem Tex. I would still take them because they waypipe their butts around the battlefield and are the ultimate objective stealers, threat, backboard, go where you need to go, do what you need to do. Super duper teleporty threat, awesome expert conquerors. I love them so much. At 110 points, they are amazing. Right?
No. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Not a whole lot more needs to be said about them. Yeah.
They're battle line.
Always been amazing.
Yeah, they've always been amazing. Like they're one of the game's perfect units. So fantastic.
I will say one thing I love about the changes is it used to annoy me that I would have this elite elven revenant thing, which was worse than a storm vermin
Yeah, sure.
in terms of its combat profile. Now it has 2 wounds. I'm like, at least it's hard to kill.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yes. The 2 wound change on both of these is meaningful.
I think so. Yeah.
It's whatever. We'll get there in a second. But the with the tree revs, they've been in, as I said, I've gotten 3 games in with them. I would have called them the MVP whether I was playing them or the opponent was playing them. All 3 games, they were the best unit on the table, and they never made an attack. Ever. So, that tells you right there the value. Alright, Spite Revenants. 3 attacks, 3s, no rend, 1 damage. The important part about them is that the unmodified hit roll for an attack made with crew talons and fangs is a 6. You suffer 1 mortal wound and the attack sequence ends. These guys are fine with 2 wounds. Of course, the challenge there is now you're not taking them in big packs anymore. Obviously, you're now capped at 10 in anything except Dreadwood, which moves them to battle line, so you can go to 15. But if the meta is such where, doing a ton of, no rend attacks becomes quite viable, or 1 rend if you happen to be around a tree song, these guys can be quite interesting, especially in something like Dreadwood. I think right now this season isn't the best for them. Again, in the world of bounty hunters all around, but I think this could be a sleeper scroll for the future. Is my feeling. David, what's your thought here?
The Spite Revenants?
Yes, the Spite Revenants. Yeah.
Sorry, my headset cut out very briefly. It's running low on battery, apparently. But yeah, no, Spite Revenants, in principle, I love them. Especially in Dreadwood, with the way that makes them work. But in practice, if you take them, you want to run them Dreadwood for that extra rule synergy. And that's suicide in Bounty Hunter meta. So
Right.
It's just see what the next General's Handbook does. And then maybe this will be playable.
There you go. Like I said, sleeper scroll. Don't write them off. Your Spite Revs, they're going to have some time to shine. Don't worry. It's coming. It's
I
coming.
like him as a potential slot in a list for 210 points, a tenor. That is a great tool to go kill a decent sized veterans unit, particularly when they're bounty hunters themselves. So if you want that tool in your list to pump out 31 or 41 attacks, 2s, 3s, maybe 2s, 2s, maybe -1 rend, 2 damage a pop. I mean, they can do a ton of work. I watched a battle report on Mini Wargaming the other day where they exploded some 20 packs of Gut Rippers. And yeah, so yeah, I like maybe a unit of 10 as a tool.
Yep. Cool. Okay. Next up, Skaith's Wild Hunt. Okay, so you're taking this thing for 110 points because it's a wizard that has. This is the reason you took this thing. This is 110 points you're paying for this spell, Might of Kurnoth. Casting value of 7, a range of 12 inches. Pick one friendly Sylvaneth unit within range. Invisible to caster. Add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by with melee weapons by that unit until the start of your next hero phase. So, is it worth 110 points to get +1 to get a castable +1 to wound spell? That's the question we're answering here. That's it.
I think so. Yeah. I think this will show up in a number of lists. Well, that might be an overstatement. This will show up in some list.
Okay.
Yeah, a chance to put Darthu on 2s and 2s, and you don't have Crown of Feldbowers. Maybe you made a mistake, according to even particular events, which I think you made a very compelling argument tonight for Crown of Feldbowers. The chance to put 6 Bite Rider Lancers on +1 to wounds. That could be, I think it will see some play. It also gives you a little more optionality because it takes a Deepwood lore spell as well. So, you got another wizard you can slot in if you don't have a particular, a more pressing need than the +1 to wound. So,
as pointed out, this is the cheapest wizard in the book.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah. It's you think of it as a 6/1 wizard. You kill the other stuff, and it's a 6/1 wizard.
Yep.
I just wish it was a hero.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yilthari, skip. It's 180 points. You're not going to take it. I don't care. Endless spells. Let's do this real quick. You ready? Glade Worm? No. Spitesworm Hive? Yes. Vengeful Skull Root? Also no. Done and dusted. Okay? I don't know who points endless spells, but GW, listen to me. I want you to really dial in here, guys. Okay? Utility should be more expensive than damage, because utility creates synergy that creates combos that allow you to actually use your army more effectively, that creates something better than the sum of its parts. Something that just maybe does D3 mortal wounds is nothing. Okay? I don't know what meta you have in that building that you think something that maybe does D3 mortal wounds at a very short range, like 14 inches on the Glade Worm effectively, it's wild, is worth 50 points in my list, is more expensive than Spitesworm Hive, which is clearly the best endless spell in here. Like, it's not even close. It is so much better than the other two. The points here are completely wrong. Just completely wrong. I don't know who points these things. I don't know why they point them this way. Whatever formula you have is wrong. Please fix it. The utility on the spell should be more, unless they just outright bin units like the Purple Sun, and the damage one should be cheaper. Okay, I've said my piece. I mean, it's Spitesworm, right? Like, that's what we're taking, and who cares about the rest?
Like I said, don't really look for opportunities to set up the -1 rend from your opponent's potential hit back on your strike and fade piece, especially, or just in general. I think that's going to come into play quite a bit. Yeah, it's such a nice benefit on the other side of the hive. I kind of like Skull Root. Like, yeah, I think it'll show up in some competitive list.
You're out of
sure, that ancient popping out, running
You're out
D6
of your
mortal wounds
mind.
across multiple enemy units. That's not that hard to set up.
Nope. Again, as long as Purple Sun exists, I'm paying 20 more points for Purple Sun.
Sure. Yeah.
There's no world where I take that stupid tree.
It's not operating in a fair, reasonable space of argument
this
here.
Is the way the world works. I don't know what to tell you, man. These are the scrolls that exist. Like, it should not exist like it does. It should be changed immediately. Okay? But as long as it does, ain't no vengeful skull roots hitting the table. Okay? Like, +3 to run and charge for 40 points is stupid. It's stupid. That's stupid. And especially in a teleporting army. I'm sure you guys are all happy about it. That is stupid. I have to, like...
What should it be?
Okay, well, let me give you... First of all, there's not many things that add +3 to charge in the game anymore, ever. Like, they killed it out of Ideneth. Okay? the so let's do the easy equivalent in the book that came out at the same time in Skaven. Okay, I can either take a 3-pack of a stupid unit like 3 little Packmaster morons for 65 points, and they can whip pack Skaven units, so a particular keyworded Skaven units, which is giant rats or rat ogres, and give them the same bonus +3 to run and charge. Okay, or I can take a 90-point hero, and he can do the same thing. And they can only whip 1 unit, so it's the same limitation, right? Like, blah, blah, blah. You have it on a 2-up or whatever, right? So, I mean, there's whatever.
Yep.
So,
like, it's a super good bonus, given that mine can work on 2 different units and is more expensive. Now, given it's automatic, I don't have to cast a spell to do it. I just have to exist. But it's much more limited. It is also, I would point out, on a thing that can die. there is a payment to that. I didn't have to cast a spell. That thing can die. Your wizard could also die, I suppose. But this can affect any Sylvaneth unit. Just go ham, baby. What do you want to charge? What were you hoping to push
Another
through there?
issue, Vince, is that this can be difficult to actually get off the board because it's going to potentially be in a wildwood that you're not going to be able to see through.
Sure.
You have to see to dispel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm not saying
I
this
mean,
shouldn't exist. I'm saying it should be more, like, literally invert the points. This should be the 60-point spell. Then I'd be okay.
much past 60 points, you're not going to be able to fit it in lists anymore without suddenly, I'm 10 points over, I can't take Drykai,
I
I need
agree.
to go down.
I agree. It should be 60. I don't want it more than 60. It should be 60. Like, if this was like 60 points for the Spite Swarm, 50 points for the Skull Root, and 40 points for the Glade Worm, I'd be like, well, the Glade Worm's still overcosted and will never get picked. But at least the world would make sense to me.
Sure.
Fair enough.
Okay. Cool. Let's talk lists. We're going to do this somewhat quickly. But we'll get...
Because I don't know how long my headset's going to last for. I'm sorry, guys.
No, it's okay. It's all right. I'm not going to lie. I might have had to go to the bathroom for the past 3 hours. So here we are.
Oh.
Nope.
I think we
Camera
lost
went
him.
away. It's all right. Oh, we're back.
I'm still here, just my headphones died, so now I'm playing with my setup so that I don't give you guys feedback. Actually, do you have feedback right now?
No, you're good.
Thank goodness. I moved the mic so it was over on the other side and turned the gain way up, so
Yeah.
it should still be picking me up.
You sound the same. Yeah, you sound super good. No issues there.
Yeah.
All right. Tyler, you sent me these. Oh, there, of course, it picked up a little bit of echo when I talk too loud. That's all right. I'll talk at a normal tone of voice. You're fine. Okay.
I'll just mute myself.
Easy enough. You just come off mute when you want to talk. So, Tyler, you sent me the lists along. So here we go. So I'm going to let you take us through these. The first one, I put them in the exact order you sent them, Tyler. So hit me. This is the Gnarl Root one with the dwindling and take what's theirs. The Revenant, Drycha, Spirit of Durthu, Battle Mage, so on.
Okay. Yeah. So this was David and I's crack this week at a competitive list. I'll root the dwindling. We've talked a lot about that. Mentioned grand strategy. There's certainly others you can take. I think take what's theirs will be a common one. Have more units in your opponent's territory at the end of the game. Obviously, tree revenants are highly valuable for that. And we've got exceptional mobility. Song Revenant has the Spell Stinger action now. I have Acorn of the Ages in this. I'm going to say we, David. I'm going to loop you into this because it's basically both of our lists. We have Acorn of the Ages because it's a way of getting a Wildwood without taking the True Lord Ancient. Now, there could be some games where we're going to get punished a little bit for that. I think it's going to need some play to see if it's going to be okay, but I like it in principle. Tree Song, incredible, particularly with this list. It can benefit Durthu, benefit the Spite Rider Lancers, Drycha if she gets into combat. Battle Mage is a second option for getting your bonuses to charge. I think it's going to be a pretty common pick. The spell is a 4+ because we're operating in Gur, so pretty easy to get casted. And then we have, again, the Tenor of Dryads, that idea.
The silliest rules loophole, but yes, it is true. It is true.
What's that?
He gets his bonus to cast. We are in Gur.
Oh, yeah.
Just the
Right.
dumbest thing, but yes, it is real.
Yeah, on a 5. Yeah, we need it 5 to 4. Very reasonable. Tenor of Dryads, again, the footprint. I think a lot of people would just make that a 5 of Tree Revenants, but again, with this list, it's 2,000 on the nose, so it doesn't quite fit if you just have 3x5 Tree Revs, but that will be a pretty common choice by a lot of competitive players. And then the 6 Spite Rider Lancers. Not the best hammer in our Battletome, but quite solid, particularly when you're looking to do combo damage, which this list is really oriented around. Excellent built-in mobility.
Yeah.
Really, really solid unit.
To jump in there, basically, this list is trying to approximate the old Dreadwood style. So you can get Darthu hitting the target, then Drika's shooting it for 20. She's not charging it because you don't want to have to choose between striking and fading her and striking and fading the Lancers.
Right.
I think, yeah, Darthu's not the general, so he isn't expendable, but if you lift 500 points and you lose Darthu, that's not a bad trade.
Right.
This is very likely to do that.
Yep. Absolutely.
And then the Skates Wild Hunt, yeah, slot in. This list had 110 points, so could have gone it's basically Tree Revs, or Skates Wild Hunt, or 3 Ether Wings and a Triumph. Maybe a unit of 5 Spite Revs. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But yeah, you've got some play around with that. Yes, kind of David was alluding to, this list can really do combo damage amazingly well. So we'll see to what degree we have Death Star pieces in the meta, to what degree we have that in the upcoming meta relative to what we did have. How many Gatebreakers, how many 10 Protectors, 4 Fulminators, yada, yada, yada. Where you're going to want to be able to do combo damage while you're making them strike last so that you're not getting any swing back from them with any of your pieces, right? This list can do that very well. It's got a lot of different tools, decent number of bodies. It's got the Warsong Bomb potential, heavy hitting with Darthu, Drycha's ranged output, and then the mobility of the Lancers as sort of a second hammer, operating in combination or operating somewhere else on the board. And then, yeah, Spiteswarm Hive to close it out. It's a 6-drop, so I think that's going to outdrop quite a bit in the upcoming meta. My guess would be a lot of lists are going to be 8 drops or more. And that there's going to be, I would tend to think we're going to see like 3 drops, Battle Reg, Double Bounty Hunter. And then we're going to see like 8 drops, maybe 7 or 8 drops or more. And then there'll be kind of a sweet spot in the middle there if you're wanting to outdrop the higher drops. So that was kind of the idea behind Battle Reg.
Nice. All right. List 2. Gnarroot, the Dwindling. Take what's theirs again. This one's got the Spirit of Darthu, the Warsong Revenant, a Tree Lord Ancient, an Arch Revenant. Again, 10 Dryads, 5 Tree Revs, 5 Tree Revs. This time we've got the 6 Kurnoth Hunters with great bows. Once again with the Hive. All right.
So David, this is your friend Adam. Do you want to go through this one? Adam
Yeah,
Roberts.
so I got a good friend of mine, Adam Roberts, has been running a list. I think this has got some changes from his list, but it's very much like this. And what it's doing is it's using the Tree Lord Ancient to set up a turn 1. Here's the thing. I'm going to vortex you a billion times through it, and then Darthu basically runs around like a monster killing stuff. The Kurnoth bows are used in a similar way to the way Mathmal used to use them, to pick off things that have been weakened by that vortex to make sure they really die, to pile onto Darthu's damage. They also form that front line on the bunker so you can teleport back to it. It's not the way I would tend to do it, but it's been performing well enough in his games on just in person on tabletop for the virtual tabletop simulator thing that I felt like it was worth mentioning that, hey, you're going to see the Vortex play. It could look something like this.
Yeah. And I like it at 1975. It's got the Bloodthirsty Triumph for the reroll charge. You don't want to be on a 6-up charge and then fail it and be in that kind of position or something, right, with Darthu. So that helps smooth that over without needing to worry about the command point. And I do like the combo of the Vortex plus the bows. It also means that the bows could be used to clear some of the chaff that might be in the way for what Darthu really wants to get to. Just there's options. There's options there, right?
You got the double Vortex with the Dwellers Below. Coming from the Warsong Revenant with Spellsinger, she can put both Unleash Swarm of Spites and Dwellers Below from the Warsong. And you're in all routes, so you're going to have multiple ways to get your cast a little more reliable, particularly for the Warsong. Yeah, we just thought this is a pretty good approximation. The first attempt at an old school play style and the Math Mallow kind of play style, right? I'm just not necessarily convinced the 6 bows and Arch Revenant is going to get there in enough games, but we'll see.
Sure.
I'd love to see it.
Right on. Last list. Oakenbrow, Season of War of the Burgeoning, take what's there. It's got Durthu, we've got the Warsong Revenant, Drika, a Battle Mage, 5 tree rev, 5 tree revs, 2 Tree Lords, and 2 3-packs of Aether Wings. And of course, who's that hiding in Bounty Hunters? Why, that's the Tree Lords hiding in Bounty Hunters, which I do love. I love me some 4 damage sneaky claws. Oh, they gotcha. David, you want to take this one?
I mean, it's just my take on Entmoot. Most Entmoot lists are 3 Tree Lords, and I was like, up that Tree Lord, you get a lot of just extra screens, mobility, and control. Most Entmoot lists I've seen are running either a Lady of Vines or some kind of supplemental hammer, maybe some bugs, and I was like, you know what I like? I like Drika. And
Sure.
so what's going in there?
Right.
And I mean, I do think she actually works really well with the Entmoot's play. I mean, I think it's her or the Lady of Vines, either to get that ward on the Ents or to just say, you know what, I want extra damage on this. I want to make that character die. Lots of good stuff she brings to the table.
Yeah. You still got the Battle Mage, so when Durthu leaps himself forward right into the into there, if he wants to get somewhere forward, he can still be on a 7 to charge, completely reasonable to get in there. So yeah, absolutely. Love it.
Vince,
and then
could you-
I think the Aether Wings is actually great tech in here. I really do, because you need something in the way in this list, and there's just this is a world where chaff is really important. And even though you're not risking much from enemy bounty hunters, because I mean, what are they going to get at your tree revs? No, you're going to have those they're back here, right? I'm not worried about them getting bounty hunted, and your tree lords don't care. But at the same time, it's just good to have something else in the way, so you have a better counter strike on these. So that's nice. Yeah. What were you gonna say, Tyler? I'm sorry.
Could you hop back to the first one? I just wanted to mention that I think a lot of folks could consider the 3/4 of that list a template that we might see commonly.
Sure.
Where around it's the 530 points piece of it that can be really where the optionality comes in, where you could pop in. That is the Spite Rider Lancers and the Skates
the
Wild
Wild
Hunt.
Yeah.
Were the 2 pieces, right? You could take those out, slot in 6 sides, and have 1970. You could do a lot of with that
Right.
remaining 530 points, and I think have a number of really strong lists. I think Dave and I spent a lot of time talking about templates. 2 big heroes that is 10 wounds or more, or that's not the right way to say it. Heroes with 300 points or more. 2 of them will probably be fairly common. Sometimes just slot in a third, sometimes you won't. But and then 1 or 2 sub commanders, 2 or 3 tree revs, a hammer or 2, depending on your build out. Anyway, just kind of gives folks some ideas of kind of some templates could see some build around.
Yep. No, I agree. I think you're going to see the Warsong because 1, he's quite powerful in everything that is in here, but also 2, he's a really good sub-commander enabler with, things like the Battle Mage or your Arch Revenant or whatever your other sub-commander is that's going to, join him and the big boy in Warlord or in Command Entourage or whatever, right?
Right.
Yeah. Agreed. The Warsong's kind of the natural sub-commander choice to be one of those 2. Yeah, I agree. All right, gentlemen, we did it. We got there. Fantastic. Okay. Well, wonderful. David, thank you so much, buddy. It was great having you on. This was a wonderful time. You are welcome back anytime.
Thank you. It has been a blast to be on.
Absolutely. You're in the rotation. Consider it done. This is not a great thing for you, though. Just be warned in advance, because that means Tyler might be hitting you up and be like, "Yo, we need you for a show this week," and you'll be okay. So now you're in. You're officially in the club. So thank you
I'm
so
game
much.
for it, man. Thank you so much for
Awesome.
having me.
100%. To all of you out there who watched, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, if you haven't hit like yet, hit that button. It helps other people find the show. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to support the show, there's lots of ways you can do that. You can do those things I just said. Those are all free. You can also, of course, just tell your friends or share the videos and stuff like that. There's a Patreon down below focused on taking your next step on your hobby journey, focused on review and feedback for your hobby. Maybe you're like Tyler. Maybe you're going to suddenly have a lot of painting in front of you and you want to go ahead and improve those skills or join an awesome Discord community. Hey, this is a place where you can do it. There's also an affiliate link down there for Element Games. Maybe more of those to come soon, I hope, for other places in the world. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Really, really, really appreciate it. As always, we'll see you next Wednesday.